All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is May the 22nd, 2025. We are here with the one and only, a former colleague of mine at McKean's Hockey, an all around good dude, Ohio resident, Columbus Blue Jackets man, Greg Revak. Greg, the Hockey IQ Substack man himself, is here. How are you, sir? How are you? It's been a while. It's been about a year since you've been on, but how are things?
Been too long. I
I
just wish
know.
that you'd hit me up next time you come through Columbus, unlike all the other times you do. Unbelievable.
I know. I'm a terrible friend. I know. If I next time I will book an extra day on either end of their conference and we'll hang out. We'll go for hot dogs or whatever it is you eat in Ohio and we'll have a good time. We'll stop at Grandpa's Cheese Barn, grab some nice cheddar or something and
Warriors
have a
beef.
little.
It's right across from Nationwide. Warriors beef. Best
Okay.
cheesesteak, better than Philly. Anything you've ever.
Okay.
I just visited Philly a few weeks ago, and Warriors is way like not even close. Way better.
Right. So, I mean, longtime viewers of the show probably know who you are, but why don't you give us like a Cole's notes of or like an AI summary of sort of what you do, in the hockey world, where you come from, what you offer, and like maybe kind of like what you value, because we're going to get into a lot of individual players, some guys that we both really like, maybe some guys that we see a little differently, maybe some revisiting of previous guys that we discussed in previous episodes you've been on or just in private. So yeah, why not like a little bit of a summary of who you are, what you do, and what you value in the game.
Yeah, Cliff Notes. Coach Revak to many, high school coach here in Columbus, Ohio. Also have the newsletter and podcast Hockey IQ on both of those. Just was frustrated with the lack of like Googling how do you score more goals, and it was all like go to the net, work
Yeah,
hard. I'm like, well,
shoot.
that's yeah, shoot more. Like, okay, cool, but there's so much nuance into how do we play the game better, or how to be less of an idiot out there on the ice. So that turned into a newsletter that's got over 8,000 folks on it, including people in high places, which is kind of cool, including some NHLers now. So just trying to make the game a little bit better, have people have a great appreciation for the unbelievable talent that is out there in the hockey world, and try to talk with Will Scouch a little bit about players and what makes a good prospect versus a bad prospect, and
Yep.
agree to disagree on a few. But for the most part, when we match up in alignment on players, they always hit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I do learn a lot from you in terms of there's definitely details and such that I don't think I catch very easily. And I think you are one of the better ones out there at identifying things and going, why don't you think about it from this angle as well? Or like, why, whatever. And I kind of, at first, I'm going, okay, sure. But then I'm going, yeah, no, actually, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like you're a coach. It's almost like you teach kids
Wild.
how to like be better at the sport. It's kind of wild. Um, but anyway, yeah. So it's good to have you back. You're always a great resource, and we're gonna have some good chats. We had some good chat before the show, but we're gonna continue on with this. So before we get into the show, I should mention we are going to do Stanley Cup discussion, but more towards the end of the show this time around. But I am going to pick your brain because before the show you mentioned that Carolina is the team that you have sort of penciled in for a cup victory here, or the team that you want to see go all the way. Why is that? And you also mentioned that Florida might be a problem for them, and why might that be based on we were game in, Florida's up one. That game kind of went their way pretty easily, but why Carolina, and why might they be looking at problems here?
Carolina is a fascinating study in like, do they use the most optimal, efficient offensive play style or just play style in general? Definitely not. Like there's many reasons why point shots suck. Described that many times on the newsletter. Like it's not great, but they're so bought in on so many different levels that you'd rather have a suboptimal system, but everyone's bought in, everyone's doing the same thing. We all know what's going on, than having the world's best system with half-ass buy-in. Like it just doesn't work that well. So I'm thinking they're in their progression of like they've done this long enough, they've had enough iterations of failure in the playoffs to see, okay, what does it actually take? Like you think about some of these teams where they get the blue chip guys, the Jack Eichels and Crosby, for example, like where they're going to be able to get over that hump just based on the natural superstar talent. Carolina's got some awesome players, but do they have a Crosby of the world? Definitely not. So like their roster build is just going to take a little bit longer. They're going to have to hit that sweet spot, have greater depth, and I think they're finally at that point where you've got enough players pushing through, and the talent is going to be high enough that they can actually compete for the cup. So I think this is like the first year I'd say their cup window is truly open and available um, for players being good enough 200-foot game. But you think about teams that might be just a little bit further down the road that could disrupt the play style. And number one's got to be Florida, which, they're obviously a problem for everyone. Otherwise, they wouldn't have won the cup last year. Like they can, someone once said, like, choose which hand I beat the living piss out of you with, and that's kind of Florida, left or right hand, you can choose. They'll
Yeah.
take care of business. So they've got just the play style to create a lot of problems, get in the way of what Carolina tries to do, which every team knows what they're trying to do. But it's just so hard to stop it. Florida, with the coaching, the players that are available to them, is just a little bit higher, a little bit better. But I still think Carolina might have like the young legs. They got a little more juice in them, can go longer, a little fresher. You know what? Give me Canes and 7 on that one. That'll be
Mm,
tough.
yeah, it's a tough one. I think I agree. I think they are very interesting to compare, but yeah, the like more chaotic approach that Carolina has, maybe it works against Florida, but Florida also seems to maybe thrive in that environment where they love to come the other way and counterattack and just go hard all night, which is, you can win. Clearly they have, right? They might be on their way to a third straight, Stanley Cup final, which would be pretty wild, pretty something. But yeah, interesting stuff. So let's start talking about some players. We'll ease into the 2025 draft. We'll let some people file in over the next little while. But we had an interesting discussion on this show the last time around, I believe, which surrounded Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard. And I think it's really interesting to dig into why you had the belief that Celebrini could very easily turn into a player better than Connor Bedard in the NHL. I think at the time I was maybe tepidly understanding where you're coming from with that, but a little bit skeptical. So maybe we revisit that a little bit now that we've seen a year of Celebrini and 2 years of Connor Bedard. Why might you have your mind set in that direction to and maybe explain why that might be? And I mean, nowadays, like if you ask me today, I can kind of see where you're coming from, even if I think Bedard probably gets better from here. But where did that come from? And is that something you kind of still hold true to?
Yeah, I like Celebrini better. I think his brain and how he processes the game is just on a whole nother level. That's elite even for the NHL. You could see little snippets of it in the USHL. A classic example would be like if on a 3-on-2 rush, the puck carrier just kind of does what they want to do, and then they find the puck where it needs to go when they start running out of options. Celebrini, absolute elite brain, understood spacing extremely well already at age 16, where he would be driving, hold the middle, wait till the guy comes to him, then pops a puck out, finishes the route to the net, back door, stops, and gets a tap in. Compared to Bedard, a little more flashy, where he's going to try to undress you, and he's got great one-on-one abilities, but doesn't understand maybe the spacing, working together. And unless you're like somebody who can blow the doors off people like McDavid, you're really going to struggle. And Bedard doesn't have that type of speed to really create big problems with that. So you're looking at, okay, Patrick Kane's kind of the upside with Bedard for me. And then to your point as well, of like Bedard's got a great shot, but he also sprays it from everywhere. Like I think the goal line might just be a complete straight red line with how many shots he's put on
Right.
net from there. Like he'll score one and it'll be sweet, but then there's 29. And you're like, that was stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I see totally where you're coming from. And I think it's a good discussion to have of, not saying Celebrini isn't talented, one on one, for example, but when I saw Celebrini play with San Jose this year, the word dynamic comes to mind, and the like adaptive comes to mind with him. And with Bedard, I just watch him with Chicago and I go talent, talent, talent. Like he just has so much skill, really quick. Obviously, the shot is amazing, and I think his playmaking ability is kind of underrated, but it's all kind of done at his velocity. Like it's all kind of based around him. Whereas Celebrini, it's kind of like more group oriented. Like it's more about, like you said, like that spacing, that dynamic ability to sort of, yeah, he can go quick, but he can sort of pull back, wait things out. He's not just forcing play straight to the middle of the ice all the time. And I think that that's something that's, you know, I've come to appreciate and understand a lot more over the course of the years, rather than just like, what talent does this player bring to the game? Because I do think like hockey is a game of speed and intensity, but also timing. Like timing things like even something as simple as when you're on a defensive zone exit, and instead of just barreling into the neutral zone and trying to push guys onto their heels, you stop up and let them gap up a little bit on you, and trick them a little bit, and then you create your passing lanes on those exits and such. And like that kind of thing is something that I definitely file away in my head of like, okay, in the NHL, that's kind of what you need to do. You can't always be the fastest or most physical guy or the most skilled guy. You also have to sort of play off your opponent really well and like take creative options and create creative options. So yeah, I mean, with Bedard, obviously the talent is there, I think. And I think that there's plenty to love. You mentioned this before the show too, like a better supporting cast will help. You kind of likened it to Rasmus Dahlin. So I'm curious of what you mean by that, and having seen Dahlin over the years.
Yeah, there's a camp about 2 years ago, even with the Buffalo fans, about like, is Dahlin actually good? Like, or is he not very good? And I always told him, like, if you just switched him and Makar, like, they would both look exactly the same, just in a different space. Like, Makar would really struggle, and Dahlin would look like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, the supporting cast matters so much. Defensemen for sure, but for forwards, in particular, like, it makes a massive difference because it is so hard, especially at the NHL, to create if you don't have someone to create and you don't have that physical advantage. Like, McKinnon's got such a massive physical advantage, like he can automatically create on his own, create something out of nothing,
Mhm.
compared to a Bedard that he can get closed down very easily from a physical standpoint. So it's a lot tougher to create without having that elite team play, like you would see with like a Patrick Kane, who had that great playmaking always in his game. So
Right.
there's a big thing that goes with having supporting cast. So, but Bedard's fantastic. We can all agree on
Well,
that. Like,
yes, yeah.
this is not saying that he's not amazing.
No.
From like an elite standpoint, I don't think he's that like generational guy that a lot of people think he is. I think he is a fantastic player. He'll be great. But give me Celebrini 10 out of 10 on that one. I'd even say Fantilli, beating him to 30 goals is not 100% of a surprise. Columbus got a better supporting stack there, but you've got like the physicality standpoint that Fantilli has. And even when you think about one of the key attributes that I'm looking for in players I'm scouting, whether it be the NHL, looking for selecting players here, whether it be with a AAA program that's local, high schools, like who can get a puck back, whether that be
Right.
intercepting, whether that be stripping pucks, like that is a massive piece. You got to be able to do that. You can't just like wait around and be a shooter, like Line A. Like he truly has to be an elite thing. But how
Yeah.
how can you get the puck? So to your point, like one of your things is like, how does a player get a puck? So I put value in that more than most. I think Celebrini may have broke like the rookie record for most takeaways.
Right.
He's
Yeah,
always
I
had that
mean,
in this game.
and he's always had that, like that smart off puck ability to sort of read play, position himself well, and just always sort of be in the right spots. And that's something that takes a little bit of time to notice, I think. But and I have data points now that can actually like notice those things and track those things, which is really helpful. But yeah, I mean, and that was always the thing with Bedard for me in his draft year is like, if the game were taking the puck from one end of the ice to the next and putting a really good shot on net, like high quality shot, he'd be the greatest player that ever lived, right? But the problem, and this was in my data set at the time, like his shots, I think over half of them were coming from the perimeter, and he was just carrying the puck pretty much exclusively. Like he just was not really. He was either a target of a pass in the neutral zone or he was getting the puck up the ice himself, and the rest of the picture was really murky. The defensive numbers weren't amazing, and I think that kind of played out as expected. But the numbers were still amazing. The output was still incredible, and so here we are, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, because I think it is an interesting discussion of one guy leads with more awareness and I think dynamic play and spacing and just good understanding of the game, and the other guy isn't, doesn't not have a good understanding of the game, but just has such supreme levels of talent that needs to be sort of honed and applied, and definitely needs some help, I think. So we'll see what happens, but it's an interesting discussion, I think, to be having. And I think, I mean,
Yeah, I'll even label this. So I call
yeah,
this technical and tactical empathy. Like how do you understand what you do for others? So a classic example would be on a 3-on-2 rush, someone goes harder than that. Like someone needs to get depth on any offensive rush to have success, whether it be 2-on-2, 3-on-2, forecheck, whatever situation it is. Like, are you willing and understanding what you're doing with that? Like, oh, you go harder than that, but well, maybe I can make it easier on my teammate by driving through the defender's stick. It's like
right.
that would be one example. I would say that's tactical, right? You're
Yeah.
using your movement tactically. And then I would say there's the technical empathy. Like, what kind of weighting on a puck do you give to your teammates? Where do you give passes? Like, are you leading them into pressure? Are you leading them away from pressure? You putting them in a spot where they're going to get hit hard and they're
Yeah.
vulnerable versus one where they can actually make the next play really easy, really simply. So, just some ideas of just technical and tactical empathy and things that I'm looking for is like, how do you understand your role and how do you help others? How do you become that easy player? Like everyone wants to play with you because, like, oh, no crap, it's really easy to play when Will's out there on the ice, making it super simple, and maybe reading off me, for example, rather than
Right.
having to always be the one carrying the rock.
Yeah, exactly. The other guy that we talked about a little bit before the show, we can briefly touch on this because I'm sure there are people who are interested because this guy scored so much once he hit the OHL this year, but that's Igor Chernishov. You were a big fan of him last year. I was too, granted, but not, I don't think, as big a fan. I think that's what I recall. He was a guy well into my first round, and I've been obviously very pleased with him. And I'm curious of him because he's a very interesting one too. If we're just talking about guys who play off of others and have a bit of physical tools and bring a lot to the game, like he's a guy that you talk about quite a bit, with me privately. And like, what is it about Chernishov to you that sticks out? And Sam McGilligan, I was about to call him actually McGillicuddy because that's a joke, but Sam McGilligan also had him top 10 last year, and he's a huge fan of him too. So maybe you and him understand things on a better level than me. But what is it about Chernishov that's really endeared him to you over the last 2 seasons?
He plays within himself really well, but he has the tools that can grow and expand into higher and higher levels of hockey. Like he's one of those ones for me that it's super easy to see his play style go to the next level. Like the physicality is always top notch.
Hmm.
He's not absolutely massive, but he's not small, so he's able to play a good two-way style even as a winger. Um, I'm always looking for guys who are smart because you need to have those smarts. You can't really do it yourself. Like there's very few players that get by in the NHL based on physical tools. And I thought his puck handling was top notch. Like there's a lot of guys that have like the good hands, like quick and flashy, but I thought his were smooth and that he put pucks into good spots. Like he'd put a puck into a space and then turn, and it's already in a good protection space, so that defender's never going to see it. But it also puts in a spot where you can make the next play. So like from making one play to the next play, super simple, super easy, has the physical elements that you'd love to see. Like a lot of the stuff he does, you'd normally see in a smaller player that may not have the physical tools. So I don't know if he was a late bloomer. Maybe he's always been that big, but clearly
Right.
he's that one that just kind of gets it mentally of all these little moments that add up to helping the team, helping the flow of the game go really well. And then, with the power and the shot, all these little tools that he has, they all add up to something special. So I see him, riding shotgun in that top six in San Jose for a really long time. I know there's some distractors, just like production, but he's always played in really good environments. Like last year was no joke on when he hit the men's scene.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that I'm looking at the data that I tracked on him last year. And yeah, like he just did so many good things. And even in the KHL, like I had him ranked as I labeled him a 2A in terms of my rating system, which, if you're unfamiliar, is just like the number is the general sort of tier of talent, and the letter is just like the likelihood or the sort of consistency in that. And like I could see him being very clearly, I remember this last year, of like, yeah, there's a really good chance here that this guy is a very useful multiple situations player who brings a lot to the table. And yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about, again, it's those things where it's like you say it and it kind of puts language in my head of like what I thought was there with him. Because yeah, like he's a guy who even against men in the KHL last year, like he found ways to get scoring chances. He found ways to get into dangerous areas and wasn't popping pucks on net from everywhere and scoring goals through like luck and bad goaltending. He was just driving a lot of good possession, driving a lot of really good offensive numbers on his own, and just really efficient, right? Like that's kind of the way he plays. And now going from the KHL to the OHL and playing with a guy like Michael Misa, it doesn't surprise me that he blew the doors off of that league for that period of time that he was there.
Yeah, I feel like some of the detraction is like some of his agility is not that great, but I think he just uses his body well enough. There's no issues there. But
yeah, I think he's a guy who's a really, really good one to play off of a guy like Michael Misa, where it's like he may not be the guy who like drives everything himself or whatever, but you give him the puck in the right spots and he'll get you a chance. Like he'll do the work for you, which is valuable. And the last one that isn't a 2025 guy, we've talked about this guy a billion times, and I think there are some Devils fans that watch this show. But that would be Sheamus Casey, NTDP superstar. You and I bonded over our adoration of Sheamus Casey a few years ago, and he has cracked an NHL roster. You know, he's played a handful of games. He played a handful of playoff games this year. Even like I think he got into the playoffs for New Jersey. So Sheamus Casey, smaller defenseman, you know, maybe doesn't check as many boxes for a typical coach or, you know, evaluator or whatever. But I know what I loved about him. But like, what is it with you and Casey? And like, why do you think he might be one of these undersized guys? We see what Lane Hudson's doing in Montreal, but like, I'm wondering what you see in this undersized defenseman that might separate him and give him a really good shot at a good NHL career.
I mean, his deception is pretty second to none when he gets it going. Like there's the dynamic skating to create space similar to a Makar. But to your point, like he's smaller, so he's always had to be smarter in what he does. And he's willing to try stuff. So for me, as I see him going into pro, you're like, okay, this guy's going to get absolutely manhandled at the professional level. Like, is he going to need a full year in the AHL? And then he's already cracking the NHL because of the smarts and how he plays the game, the angles he takes, and he has the skating ability to get anywhere he needs. Like, you're not catching him often crossing his feet over as someone's changing direction. Like, he's sticking with you like glue. There's some nuances. I chatted with him briefly for a piece we did on the newsletter, and you know, he was talking about like, yeah, I don't watch that much hockey. Like, he's not a Shifley like watching hockey 24/7. So it might take him just a little bit longer to get all those like finer details. But he has the ability to do all of the work that needs to get done.
Yeah.
So I just love the skating, love the hands, love the deception that comes with it. Just some of the nuance and details that he's going to add to his game and figuring out what he can and can't get away with. Rather than, you know, some of these guys that just play it safe, and then maybe I'll try something. He's just willing to try it right away. So you have that confidence and that inner belief that goes a long way. You got to believe before anyone else does. And he's made a believer out of me. I've always had him top 15 in that draft. I had him as third best defenseman. Should have been super early, but just size thing. But I watched Brian Rafalski for years. For all the older people. Yeah. And how awesome was he?
He was,
Casey's way better than he is. He's got way more talent and skills.
I always forgot Rafalski was one of the smaller guys. Like, I always forgot. I mean, because I was like, when he played, I was like a kid, right? Like, I watched him when he, you know, I loved the Devils growing up because who didn't in the 90s, right? But Rafalski, like, it like never even registered in my brain watching them play that he was this like smaller guy that people might have doubted a little bit. But you know, at the end of the day, I guess it's just an indicator that if you can play, right? If you're 5'10", 5'9", 5'11", who cares if you can play, right? It's, you know, my whole thing is it always changes the equation, right? Like, it's like it adds requirements in other areas, you know, but like, so does being huge, right? If you're Leon Bischel, you know, and you're playing for the Dallas Stars right now, there's another set of requirements to be impactful that are separate from if he were 5'10" or whatever playing defense. And, you know, like they come with trade-offs. And so it's always important to keep that in mind. But I agree. I think Casey's a guy who I had him really high because I agree, like that high-end instinct and high-end skill and those, like, I think the NHL draft is all about drafting guys who have rare things you can't find every day, right? Like, there aren't that many defensemen who at a high level play like Sheamus Casey, right? There's just not that many. So it's like, well, if I have a chance to get one for nothing and take a bet on him, I'll take that bet, right? Like I maybe I could take a safer guy like you mentioned, but I might keep my job, but I might look at another team taking another player who I was kind of curious about and go, man, it would be really nice to have that guy, and sort of kick yourself a few years down the road. So Casey, I'm not surprised he sort of cracked the roster to start the year. I think part of that might be due to injuries elsewhere on the roster, but still, they had the confidence to play him for a few games. He put up some points.
You got to the playoffs, and you don't get put into a
Yeah, he
playoff
played
game
in the
by
playoffs.
accident.
Right. Yeah. Again, injuries kind of helped, but again, teams find all kinds of excuses to take a 20-year-old and not play them. Right. Like there's plenty of opportunity for guys to bench young players, and Sheldon Keefe playing a 20-year-old Sheamus Casey in a playoff game. Good for him. Nice
After
test.
dogging Sandin and Liljegren for years, I think that says a lot. And
Yeah,
both those
exactly.
players are fine now. But funny small world story, just while we're at it. Rafalski is one of those guys that somehow ended up in Southwest Florida, where Sheamus Casey is from. So they've crossed paths. I believe Rafalski's coached him a few times over. Scotty Bettman still lives down there. Mitch Korn's got a place. Daryl Belfries lives down there. So the little cradle. That's how I came across Jacob Fowler for the first time, and that guy's turned out apparently okay.
Yeah, he's all right, I think. Doing good work, I think. All right, so let's switch gears. Let's get into 2025. So I sent you a big long list of guys a little while ago about sort of what the landscape is out there. You're not a pro, evaluator, but you do love to dabble, and you're in there and you're doing your thing. And the first two names that came out of your mouth prepping for today were the two little guys. We just finished talking about Sheamus Casey. And I know you and I have talked about these two guys for years, LJ Mooney and Adam Binoch. I remember, I think LJ Mooney might have been 15, and you were like, you should check this guy out. He's playing AAA hockey. He's probably going to be on the NTDP. He's probably the next big thing in a little package. And here we are now. And let's start with Mooney then, because Mooney is probably one of the more fascinating cases for this year's draft, depending on who you ask. So you've probably seen him for years. So what is it with Mooney that has made him one of the first names out of your mouth for this year's draft class?
So he's kind of like McDavid, where the hands and the feet are both unbelievably fast. Like usually you've got one or the other that's fast, and the other one's struggling to keep up, whether it be the hands or the feet. But he can do everything at absolute rip speed pace. It's unbelievable. And he trains with Cooley, his cousin there in the summer. And he's probably better than Cooley was at the same age, like from a technical skills point, but he's also 4 inches smaller. So little different of like, how do you have to play the game to be successful? But if he grows even to his dad height of 5'10", I feel like it's a whole different story. Cause I think he's still 5'7", 5'8" at this point of time. And if you've ever seen him off ice, like he looks like a little kid. He has yet to come into his manhood, and truly, have the face of that. So I think there's still more room to grow, and I think he'll get up to that at least like 5'9" range. But the way that he's able to do things is at an unbelievable pace. Now the problem with that is he's been so much better than everyone around him for so long. Similar to Bedard, like he struggled with some of the team play. Like you watch the national development program. Even with all these best players, you think they'd all want to use each other, and he'd look off guys or not even see them. So he's got some scanning habits that need to improve. But from an absolute tool standpoint, just off the radar, like Johnny Gaudreau type, but doesn't have the brain and the teamwork to that level, and that's what really needs to develop. So I'd be excited if he goes to a place like Chicago, because I think they do a really nice job, or Montreal, where they do a really nice job with developing the mental side of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the thing about Mooney that goes really underrated and underreported is how just like off the puck he plays like insane. Like he is energetic and physical, and I think he's doing all of the things that he possibly can to sort of buck the idea that coaches can't trust him off the puck, or that coaches can't, he's going to get pushed around or whatever, because this guy, like in terms of, I track like things like throwing hits and causing turnovers in the offensive zone, like forechecking numbers, getting involved in play off the puck defensively in his own end. And he's like really good at it. Like he is, all of those areas are really positive in my sample that I've got on him. But he is one of these guys where the talent is there. You know, he's a guy who I think the concern, like I was talking to someone in the NHL the other day, and they were saying, you know, some people out there like adore him. Like they think he's the next insert tiny super skilled offensive guy. Goudreau, for example, like he's the next one of those. But they also said, well, what if he's also the next Nick Robertson, where it's like he's rambunctious and aggressive and physical on both sides of the puck, but it doesn't really matter because he's too small and he can get hurt by playing the way that he plays in the NHL, and it holds him back. And next thing you know, he's 23 years old. He hasn't played as much hockey as a whole bunch of other guys, and he's an AHL player forever, or an NHL coach won't trust him. Now, I don't know if I fully agree with that based on what I've seen of Mooney, because I think Mooney's playmaking and passing vision, like at the U18s, I don't know how much you saw of him there, but he was slinging passes and slinging, like he was cooking. And
It's going to come along, even if it's not there. Like that's something that naturally just develops
yeah,
over time. And to your point, like I think from going way back to our earlier comments, we were talking about timing and spacing. Like he understands timing and spacing. I feel like Robertson was one of those guys that tried too hard. He needed the old Carl Lewis 85%. Like just go 85%. Like
yes,
you're gonna be so much better by going less like work. Like you need to work less hard. Like,
yeah,
you're like he would like Nick Robertson still does this where he like goes so fast, so quick that he runs himself into the defense.
right.
Mooney's got like he's an elite processor. Like the spacing and all that's going to come. I think that it may take a little bit longer, similar to Bedard, of just like understanding it. But I think he's been in good environments. Will go to a good environment to develop that in college hockey.
Yeah, I mean, whoever drafts him must see the upside, right? Like you wouldn't like I think it's very easy for teams to dismiss him, but someone I think will not and give him a go. I don't know who that will be, but I feel like he's a guy like it's there according to Central Scouting, he's a guy that might go undrafted, right? Like that's how low on people they like he's like in the 180 something, I think, on the list for NHL Central Scouting. I'm going to double check that, but he originally it was like 200th. And to me, I just kind of look at that and go, I'm not betting against this guy that much. Like that's a little bit, you know, a little bit wild. So that makes me wonder, you know, on draft day, where does he go? You know, like if you were sitting at a draft table and you've seen him for this long, like yeah, he's 200 and no, wait, sorry. Where is he? He
And
was
like he's got room to
originally.
fill out. Like you could see there's so much upside. I'd be absolutely shocked if he doesn't go in the first 2 rounds. Personally, I put him in the first round. Like if it kind of reminds me of the Seth Jarvis, the Bradley Nadeau's out there of just like they're dynamic and they've
Oh,
got room to fill out and they can become men. You can give them time in college hockey and they'll be fine.
he is 206th, by the way. So
Yeah,
fringe
that's
NHL
no
draft
way.
pick. Yeah, no, no, I don't think so. But to me, yeah, I mean, I think with Mooney, he's a guy where a guy his size, like I think you have to be a good one-touch passer. You have to be a good guy to recognize off like when situations aren't maybe going in your favor. You have to find a way to dish the puck to someone else and work off the puck then. Like, and I think he's learning how to do that a lot better. I will say too, like when he got injured at the beginning of the year, before that point, I don't think he was playing particularly well. And then he got injured, and I actually was at the rink to see him play the first couple games back from that injury, and he was not very good. But the last few games leading into the U18s and the U18s themselves, and like the last month he played, he was that's the LJ Mooney I remember from like the under 18s last year, you know, his moments with the under 18 team last year that I caught. That's when I sort of go, okay, this guy, again, like there will come a time in the draft where he is talent wise probably the best player available pretty quickly, like in terms of raw ability. So it's just a matter of like where you judge the risk because he also got injured again at the U18s. So, but hey, look, if he's the fourth or fifth guy that I'm drafting in this year's class, wherever that might be in the draft, then it's as good a bet as any, to say the very very least, I'd say. Um, yeah, so let's move on. Binoch, the other small guy, another small guy who's slipping on guys' radars, a guy who came in. He's got the Hlinka Gretzky point scoring record, whatever that means to you. But he went off to Youngstown, what do you see in Binoch? He's another guy you sort of highlighted when he was 15, 16 years old, and he's just continued to look tremendously fun, but he's a little lower on my list than Mooney. But I'm curious what you think of Binoch and where he's come in his game since you've started watching him.
Yeah, I love there's a big difference between like where do you see his valuation and what kind of player do you love. Like I love watching Binoch. Like he's just a fun kid to watch. He tries things. He plays the game the right way. Like you want to see as a coach. Like he's got the footwork, the platform. From seeing like upside, like I don't think he's got a ton more room to fill out physically. But you could see like he knows what's going on. Like he was a peewee player, and you could tell like that's how you should play center at any level of hockey. Like we're going hard through the middle. We're making one touch plays. We're giving and going. Like he understands spacing, all of that. Like so, he's got an elite brain. Now the physical tools to keep up with it, push the pace of play. That's where I think I come in a little bit lower. Of like I don't think he has that ability. So that's where it's like okay, Mooney for sure for me is an NHL talent. Like no doubt. Binoch, some things need to go right. But he does have that potential where you can see he's building off of a really high base. But for that small guy, like what are those one or two elements? I think he's just an absolute genius when it comes to playing the game. He's got clean feet. He's got good edges. So he's able to make it. I just don't think he has that dynamic element that you'd love to see where you're like, for sure, slam dunk. But if he had that, he'd probably be a top 10 pick in the draft. So for me,
Right.
I'm thinking more second rounder, second guy you take off the board type player, early second round, where he's got the tools, definitely needs a little more runway. Gym time is going to be huge, but you just don't see the massive upside that I see with Mooney. I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, Binoch, I think, has been really interesting to watch this year. Like, I think the jump from I was interested to see him go from playing a bit of pro hockey last year in Czechia to the junior league in the US. Like, seemed like a bit of a strange thing, but he said himself, like, he just wanted to have more time against junior competition and like good junior competition before playing grown men. Like he said, it was a little bit too much, and I understand that. Like he wants a better stepping stone, and I totally get that because he did look a little bit maybe physically outmatched there at 16 years old, which oh God forbid. Um, and I do think he got off to a bit of a slow start with Youngstown because it kind of felt like he was trying to be the guy. Like it kind of felt like he wanted to be that Connor Bedard, like give me the puck, I'm gonna carry it, I'm gonna go over all the blue lines, I'm gonna cook in the offensive zone, like I'm the guy. And I think teams kind of figured that out real fast and started shutting him out, blocking him up and really sort of making him play off the puck. And I don't think that was really his expertise or quick puck touches. Like making his puck touches really quick wasn't really his thing early on. But I think in the last few months, like the last game, I remember watching the last game I saw of him, which it's been a while since I saw him, but I should get back into it. But the last game I saw of him a little while ago was by far the best I saw of him. And I think one that really showcased that he is learning. Like I think he's learning how to play a better, more projectable game. Like he was playing a style of play where it's like you better be one of the best guys on your team if you're going to play like this and you're going to be a star. And I'm not sure that it's quite at that point for him, but he was much better on his puck touches. He was much better in situations where like defensemen, I think as a winger, that's where you kind of saw a little bit more comfortability at this level. Like defenseman gets him the puck on a defensive exit. He faces pressure immediately, one step, two steps, skill move, pass, and then be the last guy in on the forecheck, or, quick, gets the pass at the offensive blue line, quick little pass lane, and then just chips it around a defenseman, and then he goes in on the forecheck or goes to the net, right? Like he's doing a lot of things that hockey players should do, but he's doing it in a way where, yeah, like you said, the talent base is there, right? Like in tight, he's got skill. He can do the low pace, I can get pucks through feet. He's got a really good shot, gets it off quickly. And I think he's come a long way this season. Again, Central Scouting has him as more of like a third, like he's 50 something in their list. And I think on average, his ranking is around, let me look here, around the 40s, which is around where I have him. And I think that makes some sense. But again, it's a situation where I think in the draft, NHL teams are going to look at him and go, is this guy even going to play? right? And like if that's a question, I think that NHL teams raise, they might not look at him in the range where I think you and I think he should go, because he does look like a player who is learning how to adapt to the game, being a guy his size. But I still think that the talent base is really good. And I think that the potential is there for him to be, one of those guys. Like we talked before the show a little bit about Lucas Reichel and how he seems to be having a little trouble like finding a role and like finding something he's comfortable and consistent doing and all of those things. And I wonder if teams are thinking similar things about a guy like Binoch. Like what kind of role is he going to play? Like is he going to be on our middle six, and if so, is he got like what kind of physical tools are we dealing with? What kind of like is he going to be a pass for, like what's the role a coach can give him? And I still am not entirely sure on that, but the talent is there, right? And it's the same thing with a guy like Reichel. Like you can see talent there, but the output and like what are you going to do is the big question mark, I think.
Yeah, and he produces. Like you see the
Yeah.
numbers are there, so
Yep.
it's like he's doing things to the game. So, for me, it's just like are the tools that they're high enough?
Yeah.
Because the NHL is an unforgiving place. Like for sure, like he'll be a fantastic AHL player. Any league in Europe, he's going to be fantastic. But can you break into that NHL and have middle six and then potentially go top unit? Like that's tough, and that's
Yeah.
definitely where my questions are. But
Yeah.
he's a fantastic player. I'll watch him any day.
Yeah. I mean, if you get him in the third round, he probably is one of the most talented players available, unless LJ Mooney's still available. And at that point, it's like, well, if he doesn't work out, then who cares? It's a third round pick. But, if he plays 10 games, even then you kind of look okay. And I feel like if I don't know. He's a weird guy. He's a weird case, but it's always interesting because it's interesting to get your read on it because you have a different sort of viewpoint on it. But I think we come down kind of similarly on him. Like if he works out, it would be great. LJ Mooney, if he works out, it would be even better. Like they could be so fun and so good for the game, but the bar to get there is pretty high. Speaking of high bars, the two guys are at the top of most people's draft boards this year are Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa. And you brought these guys up as guys you kind of wanted to bring up in the show. I'm sure there are people here who are maybe more and more Islanders fans now. Who knows, now that they have the first pick? But like, I know there's a lot of Chicago people, a lot of San Jose people. So if you had that first pick, who are you going with and why? And if not, what does the other guy bring so that maybe the fans of that second overall pick team feel a little better about the player they're getting?
Well, I like Misa. Like it was one of those kids where like everyone was excited, like he's a generational talent, and then everyone's like, well, maybe he's not that. He kind of stinks, and now everyone's back on the Misa list of like he's awesome again. So he's a fun one, but like just profiling that out, like you just don't see many of those players, and the only chance you get to have those players is having a top 10 pick. So he's kind of Adam Fantilli, like big power forward type. You can't go wrong. Like he plays an NHL style. He's a really smart kid. Like he's just going to be a solid NHLer. Like the chances that he doesn't hit the NHL have got to be close to zero. Like he's just fantastic. The question is, okay, what's the absolute ceiling? And I think super highly. I'm like he has all the tools, all the talents. You have a few questions here and there, but back to our earlier point about spacing, teamwork. Like he's a kid who gets it. Very similar to the Celebrinis of the world. Now, I don't think he has the jam per se of a guy like
Yeah.
Celebrini, where we're going to take a ton of pucks away all the time. Like we're going to be super involved in every aspect of the game. From my viewings, it's he lets the game come to him a little bit more. And then Schaefer, like yeah, I don't think you can go wrong either way. But Schaefer's just like awesome D guy. Like you saw with Canada, where they just absolutely fell apart without him being the number one D. Which says a whole lot about a kid who was he double underager on that one?
Well, he's very close to being a 2026 draft guy, right? Like he is young and he's a draft year guy. And I mean, he was on the under 18 team last year, I believe. But yeah, World Junior draft eligible defenseman who played that much. It's pretty rare. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and he's got the skating, the mobility, the hands. Like there's not a ton to be scared of. Like those two guys are both super projectable, going to be awesome NHLers producing. part of any solution for a team. I just hope they don't go to Buffalo because who knows if they get ruined there, just like everyone else, and they'll be missing the playoffs for nth years in a row. And I have to hear all about my Sabres fans tell me there's always next year.
That's true.
But I get super excited about both those guys. I mean, you can't go wrong either way. Do you want the forward? Do you want the D? I tend to lean Schaefer. I just think he's just so solid in so many aspects of the game. He kind of reminds me of Werenski, where like he can step up and go to the point of like pure domination, top of the tier NHL list. Like I think back to Brant Clark, who went really high, and just there was a lot of little pieces missing. I don't think like he's just so complete.
Yeah, I think Schaefer has a much more intriguing package of tools that, like, I remember watching Brant Clark, and granted, he was playing in the Slovak top division the year he was drafted, right? So very different environment. But I think it did showcase a lot of where there might be some growth that's necessary. Like, to play defense in the NHL is a tall order. And I think Clark is still kind of figuring those things out, especially off the puck and defensively. But, obviously the skill is there. But with Schaefer, it's interesting you bring up Werenski. Like, Werenski and Dougie Hamilton are the two guys that kind of come to mind of like how kind of Schaefer reminds me a little bit, just in terms of like the energy, but the smarts and like how to pick your spots about carrying the puck and where to put the puck in terms of like, I'm going to take the puck this direction to like drag defenses this way, and I'm going to move the puck back this way. And he has this ability to just, get the puck up the ice really effectively, both with like, if he's the target as well, but as a guy passing the puck or carrying it. I think the defensive zone might be a bit of a work in progress, but that's not uncommon for 17-year-old defensemen. And like, I think that he's one of these guys where maybe if you look at his analytics a certain way when he's 26, you can look at it and go, how much value does he really bring really when you look at his numbers in this area? But I think you're going to go, yeah, but the pros really outweigh the cons here, especially because he does have this sort of dynamic offensive ability. And again, yeah, the World Junior thing is true. Like, he was a catalyst offensively for that group off the blue line, and they didn't really have a backup option, or at least one that showed up really and like covered it for him. And Misa, I mean, it's kind of crazy to me that there's more and more, it seems like there's more and more discussion about maybe Misa's not the best forward available in this draft. Like, there's people sort of floating around that, he wasn't great in the playoffs, even though he was injured. But it's like, he wasn't great in the playoffs, and other guys are going further in the playoffs, and they have a little more jam in their game, and everybody's watching the playoffs. Everybody's watching the Florida Panthers, right? Is Michael Misa a Florida Panther? And I mean, no, I don't think that's what he is. So does that mean he's less valuable in an NHL draft? And I mean, I personally disagree with that, but like, where do you come down on that? Because I do think it is a legitimate point of discussion with Misa of like, it is true, there isn't much of a physical game to him. There isn't much of a, I'm going to run through you in order to make something happen here. But how does that stack up for you if you still consider him one of the best guys in the draft? And frankly, the same case with a guy like Schaefer.
What is the physicality accomplishing? Is always the question I come back to. Like, I look at a player like Austin Matthews, even like a Jonathan Taves. Were they throwing the most hits? Are they throwing the most hits? No, but they've got physicality in a smart element where they control space. And the NHL is a like an unbelievable round where you cannot find another ground, an area, league, etc., that values space and spacing more than the NHL. So if you don't have the mindset of how do I best control space, or how do I space out opposition properly, you got problems. The fact that I watch these guys and you can see that they're smartly using their physicality shows projection when they're getting bigger, stronger, faster, etc., compared to some players that I struggled with projecting their mindset of spacing. Like, it just, for me, when I watch a player, if you don't value space now, why would you suddenly change in the future? If you don't understand the value of giving away ice versus making it hard on the other team, that's tough. So I think he still has, like, both of those guys may not be the most physical players, but they smartly control the space that is theirs. And then also have a good understanding of spacing to the point with Schaefer earlier, where he's pulling guys and then going with his passes. Like there's added deception, there's reasons, there's intentionality behind it. And that's where I think Misa is still fantastic. Um, you know, the forwards at the top end, I think you could probably go this, that, or the other of what you like. For me, I like Misa best based on my flavor. I also find more and more, and maybe this will change with the NIL rules, but like the OHL, WHL, the Q, the level of play has gone down dramatically compared to like the NCAA and some other levels where there's this big disparity and you can pick on players pretty easily. But those guys still do things that are going to translate to higher level hockey regardless.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, I think with Misa, I mean, I can also, in my head, I know it's not something you can hear, but I can hear in my head producer AJ, who is here, listening to you talk about Austin Matthews and how he plays physically, and his ears probably perked up because that's something that I know him and I have talked about as one of the more underrated parts of his game.
They did.
Yeah, and
I
so
sent you a telepathic message, actually.
yeah, I know these things. But yeah, like, and I think that that's a really, really, really salient point. Like a really important thing to remember is like, it's not just about the guy throwing hits. It's not just about the guy that can, skate fast, right? It's not just about, it's about how you use what you have, right? Like, how do you deploy the capabilities that you have? And I think with Misa, the thing that's really stunned me is his ability to, yeah, he doesn't throw hits, but he doesn't really need to, right? Like that's the thing is he kind of reads play so well and puts himself in good spots to support maybe some more physical players on his line so well that, yeah, like if you're expecting him to go out there and be literally the perfect hockey player who is heavy and physical and strong but super skilled and smart and excellent scorer and all of these things, he's not that. But like, who is? Right? Like, Sidney Crosby is not known for his physical side of the game, but he does use the physical side of the game to his advantage because of how smart he is. Like, those are the things that I think make those guys really, really impressive. And so I think you're right. Like, to me, both of these guys at the top, take your pick. I don't really know which one's better, but I do think they both are extremely projectable and smart talents who have a lot of upside. So with Misa, and the numbers on my end, they don't lie. Like, he is unbelievably good in almost every metric imaginable except hitting guys. And it's like, well, how much does that really make a difference, right? Clearly it's not making too much of a difference because he's been dominant everywhere else with very good line mates, but still dominant nonetheless. Yeah, so couple of good players, and if any one of them is available past two, I mean, I don't know how much you've seen of like a James Hagens. That's another guy who's kind of slipping and sliding a little bit all over the place nowadays for various reasons, but it could be an interesting final month going into the draft, I think.
Yeah, it'll be good. I like Hagens. High-end tools are the question mark, but I mean, he's one of those guys kind of like Darlene. Like, I don't think he ever looks down at the puck.
That's true. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about with you is actually a really interesting thing you brought up. So I'll plug my own stuff. We put out our Ready Murka Scouching report a couple of weeks ago, and it seems like you caught it, and you wanted to talk a little bit about him specifically. And he's a guy that might be one of these really highly drafted right-hand big shot defensemen, or right-hand shot big defensemen. And you had maybe some caution about him. So maybe expand on that a little bit and what you mean, because it was very, very interesting why you feel that way.
Yeah, I've got two reservations. One, I don't think he reads that far ahead of the play. Like he's a little late on everything. Very hard to not notice a 6'6" defenseman, though, especially a right-hand shot defenseman. He's just a little bit slow in his reads for where you'd like him to be. So that's always concerning for when you're thinking about processing the game. The second piece is just from a technical standpoint, which you hope players can change. But from my viewings, it's hard to really change your ability to handle the puck. Like he'll randomly have moments where he struggles handling the puck, where he puts it in awkward spots, where he struggles to control, manipulate, etc. And for me, he's just got a really, really strong bottom hand, which creates some problems with how you manage the puck, how it rolls off your stick, how does it get manipulated into space, where can you go? Can you separate your upper body from your lower body to make plays in tight areas? So he'd be like, for me, a guy that could never really play on his offhand side. I think he'd struggle mightily as he struggles to separate those two, and he'll even throw himself off balance a few times. I think there was a clip or two in your scouting report where he made a play and he tried to jump into a thing, but he'd thrown himself off balance from making the pass that he couldn't like pass and move very smoothly. And he struggled to get into spaces. So I struggle to see the hands. Like I think back to like Sonny Milano, like great hands, but it almost hurt him with how good it was. Or other guys like Svozil would be a phenomenal defenseman in the NHL by now, but you watch him and you're like, he almost loses the puck half the time he touched it. So like for Murka, when I watch him, I've got some big qualms on how fast he's able to process the game. And then two, from just the physical side of how he throws himself off balance, puts himself in weird spots, doesn't have the ability to make the plays because he can't separate upper from lower due to just a rock solid, hard bottom hand.
Yeah. And that's something that, again, it's like one of those things where you say the words like as a coach would, and it kind of clicks a little bit. Cause there was always something about Murka where I'm going, there's something a little off about how he carries the puck and how he creates room for himself and how he, preps his passes and everything. But it's, and I've talked about this with some people as well on the team side of things a little bit over the course of the season about Murka. And it's so hard to argue against what teams might say in return to that. And they go, well, he's huge and he's not done developing, right? We'll stick him with a development coach. We'll stick him with this and this and this. And in 5 years, what could he be? Right? Like what if, right? And it's like, yeah, he might be a little clunky. Yeah, the offensive tools. Like I don't really see much in the way of 5-on-5 offense against good opponents. And in terms of like, he's very much a defense first style of guy, but you put a lot of pressure on him, and I feel like things get a little bit murky perhaps. But at the end of the day, like,
murky, nice.
Yeah, a little murky. But yeah, I mean, like but it's really hard to argue against that. So I guess like before we let you go, like I'm wondering, you don't work for an NHL team to my knowledge, but if you did, like how do you sort of, if you're looking at especially a really high draft pick, right? How do you sort of juggle this sort of development angle, right? Like you see a player who does X and you see a player that does Y. And you look at the both players and you ask me, and I say, well, I like X more than Y. But you go, I believe more in Y because I think the trajectory is going to grow faster than the other guy that you like more. And I've gotten that from people many times in my experience, and that's fair, right? I can't. It's hard for me to argue because I'm not as much of a development focused person. Like it's not my forte, so I kind of try to stay away from it. But you are a more coach oriented, development oriented skill guy. So how do you sort of weigh that in your head of like, okay, I'm seeing this out of this player and I'm seeing this out of this player, and maybe it's a little questionable here and there, but I think that with time, this guy's going to figure it out. Or with the other guy, it's like, okay, there's a lot there, but I feel like things might have a bit of trouble once things get much, much more difficult. Like, how do you balance that or weigh that?
Yeah, like for me, even with like skating, like some people are like, oh, you have to be a phenomenal skater, otherwise, blacklisted. For me, it's just like, is your base good enough? Like Dylan Duke would be a classic example. Great skater, probably not, but hey, he gets around the net, gets the
Yeah.
areas. I think Connor Brown similar. So like, do you have a strong base? Like for defensemen, like, do you have clean feet? Like, if you don't have clean feet at the NHL level, you will get destroyed. Like people
Right.
know how to manipulate feet at that level. So like, do you have the clean feet? Do you have the base for good stick work? Like hands are off hips. Yeah, the ability to slide that bottom hand up and down to figure out where does this puck need to be best? Like, am I baiting someone in? Do I want to hold it in my hip pocket? All of these things where you've got a base of technique where it can all be different and figure out based on what's your style, what's your posture, how does it all align, but needing that base. Like when I'm looking at just like projectability, I need to have that base that we can build from because it's really hard to undo bad habits and redo habits in that case. And then the second piece would just be like, do you have the mental learning ability? Do you have the willingness? Like, there's a big piece of identity going back to Reichel of like, or what are you willing to do? And those guys that are willing to do anything, just open an opportunity, do good where you are, and slowly chip away at getting more and more and more. Like that's a big thing for me of just do you have the adaptability, because you're going to have to take your skills and figure out how does it work at this level and then continually evolve them. And it's really hard to add big pieces this late in the game or deconstruct something to reconstruct it. So like, do we have a clean base? Yay or nay? Are we able to read a game so we can get ahead of it, so we can start thinking about what we're doing, so we can truly evolve our reads, etc. So those are the two big things. And then obviously the contextual of like, what level were you playing at? Like Sasha, Bedouin, however you pronounce it over there in Boston. Yeah. Like maybe he went a little bit too early. I mean, I think he's the youngest kid in NCAA hockey.
Yeah. He's one of two. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
3 now, I guess. Yeah.
It's very tough to get that ability to, one, physically be there, but then also from like a mental standpoint. So he may not, like, he probably is underrated to where he probably should be, because you're not seeing his best because he can't dominate. Like if he was still in the USHL, he'd probably be one of the best defensemen there. It's like, how do you contextualize it? And you're thinking about base, like he can skate. The decision-making has always been a little shaky, but is that something that as he gets older is going to continually be a problem? Or is that something that is going to iron itself out? I think about Connor Carrick, like made it to the NHL really quickly, but then he always would make 1 or 2 big gaffes every single game. We're like, and eventually it caught up with him as a truly big problem. So that's how I'm looking at it when I'm looking for players. I'm like, do we have a strong base that we can build from? And 2, do we show the willingness and the adaptability to do so? Like I always call it my shortcut, because I don't have the time like you guys do to scout. Of like, I might just skip straight to the third period. Like if you're having effectiveness in the third period, you're doing something right, because you've been going cat and mouse with, if you're right winger, that left defenseman all game long, you're still having success. You're probably having an adaptability in your game. You're playing cat and mouse and still having the ability to have success, rather than just knock the doors off early and then they shut off your best option and you're screwed.
Right. Well, that makes sense. We got a question that was asked to both of us, and then we'll let you go. We'll be quick, but is there a team out there? I'll rephrase it to be a little bit more applicable and a little less intimidating. Is there a team who sort of acquires players, drafts players, whatever, that really sticks out to you, that you would, if they gave you a phone call, you'd go, this makes sense. I totally understand why they'd call me to be a part of this, because I understand what they do. I love what they do. And I think I'd be a good fit. Like, is there a team out there who drafts or acquires players that just kind of are right up your alley almost all the time?
I mean, I also have friends around the league, so I tend to obviously agree with those folks. We're
of course,
obviously
yes.
thinking very similar, but I mean, it's hard not to get behind what the Habs are doing up there. I love Adam Engstrom. I think he's an awesome defenseman who'll come through and do a lot of good things. Even I think they got him in the 3rd round. They develop players really, really well. I think the Blackhawks have an excellent staff as well, and what they've accomplished. I may draft different players than what they do. But Carolina would be another one, like a Bradley Nadeau type, Scott Moreau's, those types of players, buy-in. So really, I guess I'm rooting myself out as a Canes fan at this point. But there's a ton of people that are doing good work. Obviously, there's ones that you believe in more than most on their ability to actually develop the players, or even just get players in good positions, because you have some soft influence as an NHL team.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, that makes sense. I mean, to me, the answer, it kind of fluctuates based on the year, because it depends on, a lot of teams have had changes, but I am very curious about what Calgary did last year and how Calgary is going to move forward into this coming season. They took a lot of risk, I think, in this year's past draft with their class, getting guys like Parekh and Basha, Gradine and Misa, and like all these guys who are really intriguing to me, but definitely have some gaps in their game that might be intriguing to, like what we just talked about. Like, what can you build on? Like, what can you develop, and what can you sort of figure out? And yeah, so Calgary would be probably the one that sticks it to me. Carolina as well. I mean, I think it feels like there's a bit of a pattern here where smart hockey people seem to like what Carolina does, and I don't know, maybe there's something to that. It's a strange coincidence.
Yeah, I think the Wild have some of the best
Oh yeah,
defensive prospects. Like, call me crazy, but I'm still a big Ryan Healy fan out there in
yeah,
Harvard.
he's all right. Yeah,
Yeah, but they got like Spacek also on the back end. There's quite a few interesting players they've done. St. Louis has got some really good value picks, but I think you also got a good idea and good eye there with some interesting picks of like we're starting to swing for fences rather than just
Yeah.
trying to go for guys that are going to be in our bottom six with
Exactly.
Calgary. Utah's done a nice job recently too.
Right. Well, cool. Well, on that note, we're going to let you go. We had you for just over an hour. You got to get back to your real life. You have responsibilities and a life, unlike me. So we'll let you go. If you have any closing thoughts, you want to plug your newsletter, plug whatever the gosh dang heck you want, and get out of here whenever you want to hit the hang up button.
No, been a lot of fun. Thanks for the call. I know I think we scheduled this out like 4 months in advance because
Yeah,
we're both pretty
I know.
busy.
Yeah.
But been an absolute blast. If anyone wants to check out more and how to maybe view the game in a different lens, hopefully a little bit smarter, a little bit better, Hockey IQ newsletter, Hockey IQ podcast, go check that out. Not as active I used to be on Twitter as life has happened, but always putting things out on those areas. But just love talking the game. Will, thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime, dude. Thanks for coming on, and we'll try to make it a little quicker next time between shows.
Please do. All right.
Yeah, see you around. Yeah. Thank you, Greg. What a good dude. What a fun guy.
That was great.
I guess before we get into questions, AJ,
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts, takeaways? What did you learn? Did you just play Europa Universalis the whole time and just made sure that we still sounded good?
No. Chess puzzles.
Oh, chess puzzles. Okay.
But
got
I was
it.
listening. Okay. No, I'm kidding. I was just making sure the stream was all good. I totally do my job, 100%, always.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's always good to have Greg on. And I think he does, I don't know why he likes me so much, but he does have a lot in his.
Two interesting guys who have similar but different opinions on hockey.
Right.
So there's actually something to talk about and discuss where one of you might be missing something because each other cover your blind spots, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. And I think the way that he sees things is really interesting and very fundamentals oriented. And I think, I'm not a coach. Like I played hockey growing up, but I wasn't like, I wasn't getting like top tier direction from guys who really like broke down the game for me. It was more just like you show up to the rink and you play a game.
Were you a tall kid?
Yeah.
So you got to play a lot.
Yeah, I did. I was a right hand shot 6 foot defenseman when I was 14.
Yeah,
so
you probably got to play a lot. I didn't play as a kid, but knowing like I have a cousin who did, and he's born December 31st, and he's quite the small guy. So yeah, he didn't get a lot of play time always, and then his dad became coach. So then he got more even play time, right? Because that's just kind of what happens when you're a kid. If you're tall and you're more physically developed, you play.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's good to talk to him, and I think he does have a really interesting read on a lot of these guys and where to go with his analysis and like what to look at in a player. So yeah, it's good to have him on. And yeah, I mean, I can be a bad friend from time to time and neglect him a little bit, but he's a good resource, and we're always happy to have him on. It's always a good time.
Come back, man. Come back soon.
Yeah. Well, that's on me. That's my job. Is he'll come on a lot if he wanted to and if we could, but yeah, we'll have him on more. And he's as long as he's staying up to date with guys to talk about in the draft, he can come on as much as he wants. All right. We could talk about the playoffs a little bit, and we'll get into some questions here because there aren't that many questions today so far. So again, if you have any questions, fire them in the chat and we'll get to them. Carolina, Florida. Game 1 did not go Carolina's way. I don't know if you saw much of that game.
Not a tremendous amount, but looking at the stat sheet, it's like kind of what I expected,
Yeah.
I think Florida, it's why I harp on play style so much. Florida just plays the game the best of any team I've ever seen. Like, truthfully. That's why I picked them to win last year. I didn't pick them to win this year because I was worried about their injuries, but it was not smart of me to not pick them again, potentially. Definitely think they're going to the finals. I respectfully disagree with Greg on Carolina beating Florida, but I get it. I appreciate the optimism as a bit of a homer myself for my own team. So I did not think the Leafs were going to win that series, but I also did not think they'd be as pathetic at times and be as awesome at times. Because it's a roller coaster. But,
yeah.
But I get it, man. But it was really interesting to sit back and listen to it, like talking about how a lot of, like, I don't remember if this was before the stream, but I think it also happened during the stream where you guys talked about hands, like your actual skill may, like, it doesn't change all that much necessarily, like from when you're young to when you're older, like in terms of the talent level on that. That was something interesting to think about as well. And I'm a very speed-oriented guy in terms of the guys I've looked at, and just hearing his thoughts on, well, what are you doing with it and slowing down is something that I think I personally need to take to heart a little bit more when I do look at this stuff. Because, yes, I am a guy who just looks... When I see the guys who are moving fast, I'm like, okay, these guys are getting me excited. And I should step on the brakes a bit, just like some of them should, if that makes sense, based on what Greg was saying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I would agree. I mean, I didn't get to watch all of this game. I had other things going on, unfortunately, but I mean, I think the game one was, I hope, because I still feel like I believe in Carolina. Like, I hope it was a bit of a jolt, like they have had shorter series to this point, and Washington is very different from Florida. And I wonder if this was sort of like a Florida kind of like shook them and was like, hey, this is how you're going to have to play if you're going to beat us. Like, you're going to have to deal with this, and it's very different from what Carolina has had to go through to this point. So, I mean, and losing the first game at home, yeah, that sucks, like it's unfortunate, but it's not over. And I mean, losing tonight and going back to Florida down 2-0 could be a tough uphill battle for them.
Yep.
But yeah, could be interesting. And then there's the Edmonton Oilers. I watched that game last night, and I don't know. Look, it's still the Oilers, right? That goal Draisaitl scored, classic Oilers. Connor McDavid was cooking. It wasn't, the Oilers are still capable of winning this series. Again, like I always remember in the playoffs, like whether you lose 1-0 in quadruple overtime or you lose 20-0, it doesn't make a difference, really, right? Like, it's just one game. You can come back from it and all of that. But I mean, they aren't even in the playoffs anymore, but I just sat back watching that game, and I could not imagine if Toronto were the team playing in that series against Carolina and they were up 3-1 going into the third period and then gave up 5 unanswered goals.
I'm done talking about the Leafs for the year, okay?
I know you are. I know you are. I'm just saying, like, I'm pretty sure in game one of a conference final, there would be calls for something's done in public that should not be talked about on the internet to these guys, because that was, I mean, Dallas, it just showcased, like, you cannot ever think that you've got them beat. Like, they've done this so many times in the playoffs.
They're my pick to win, man. They're my pick to win.
They have been just so, like, they're like, they're Homer Simpson in the boxing ring sometimes, where it's like, yeah, some team might pummel them. Someone might go out and go up 3-1, right? Edmonton was up 3-1 and looking like the game was tough to win, right? At the beginning of the third period, 30 seconds in, they score to start a streak of goals that I think in 6 minutes, they scored 3 goals, or 8 minutes, or
Edmonton
something like that.
Edmonton just has wild confidence swings.
Wild swings. Yeah. But I think that comes with the territory of how they're built, right? Like, they have the talent to be dominant, right?
They have
like
a literal alien on their team that can just save them sometimes. But other times it's like, oh, wait, the defense isn't good and the goaltending isn't good. And the bottom falls out.
It's the same thing as kind of Toronto, where when Toronto has those bottom 6 guys, those last 2 lines out there, it's like, you can't, maybe they'll chip in, but they're not gonna, like, relative to Dallas's depth, they're not really gonna get the job done as well, right? And I think Dallas is showcasing how valuable their depth is, and their top guys also were producing, right? Like Tyler Seguin, Matt Duchene, Mikko Rantanen, like they're all there doing the thing. And so,
but like, here's the thing: are Tyler Seguin and Matt Duchene really Dallas's top guys? And like Tyler Seguin anymore? Like he's more.
Yeah, maybe not,
but still,
yeah,
I think it leads into your point, even where it's just like the depth of the team.
Yeah, Wyatt Johnston's been great.
Yeah,
Mason Marchment was really good too last night. I thought like Marchment. I love Mason Marchment, man. Like I just think he's just so much fun.
What's hilarious, and well, maybe not hilarious, but I think everybody thought that contract was not good when he signed it.
Right.
Nobody talks about it like it's a
Nobody
bad
cares
thing anymore.
Yep. They're in the conference final again, right? Like,
but he's also a really good player.
He's good. It's the same thing with Greg, right? We talked about it. Identity. What are you? What is it that you go into an NHL rink and do on a day-to-day basis? And what can we rely on you to do? And what are you willing to do? And Mason Marchment is, I think, a perfect example of a guy who he wasn't drafted, I don't think. And he just identified a part of the game that he could do. And he just continuously has gone out and done it and stuck out, right? Like, yeah, he's got some
legend.
He's got he's got some skill, right? But like the big thing with him is that he's got that energy and that physicality, and he really he plays really good physical hockey, which I respect as well, right? Like I'm not anti-hitting, but he picks his spots really well, and when he goes into the boards, it's often turning a puck over for the opposition, right? So yeah, I mean, I think Dallas. I don't think Edmonton's out of it. I think this,
nobody's really out of it at 1-0 down.
Game one. Yeah. Yeah. And especially because it was in Dallas, like, I don't know. I still think that Edmonton, they went down 2-0 against the Kings, and they lost one game in the next 8-9. They won one of the next 9. They lost one of the next 9 games, so it's like they had the capability to turn it on and go for it. But it is not the easiest thing in the world when your opposition is Jake Ottinger and the Dallas Stars, who could probably roll 4 lines, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at daily faceoff.
2 number 1 defensemen. That's also the other thing. 2 number 1 defensemen.
They have up front forwards that I would consider quite good players on every line, right?
Yeah.
Dadonov, Jamie Benn is a guy. That's their 4th line. Tyler Seguin, Mason Marchment, that's listed their 3rd line. Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, Matt Duchene, 2nd line. Granlund, Rantanen, Hintz, 1st line. Like, where is the weakness on that roster, really, that you care about up front? I don't know.
Not up front.
I don't know. Not up front. I will say before we move on to questions, I found it kind of funny. Corey Perry, Leon Bischel at the end of the game last night getting a nice Corey Perry introduction where he tried to take on Corey Perry and be the big, bad, mean guy. And Perry did the Corey Perry thing, got the upper hand, and Leon Bischel turtled. And it's always an empowering feeling for a hockey player, especially when you're 40 years old, when you can get a 6'7" defenseman to literally turtle on the ice because you are threatening them so badly. So good stuff. And it was a great game last night, regardless. Obviously there was a lot of penalties for Edmonton, and that needs to be fixed because Dallas has power play weapons. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting. Both of them are going to be great series, I think. Seeing how Carolina responds to Florida, and now seeing how Edmonton responds to Dallas, I think both teams are capable of figuring something out. But yeah, both have been great, and we're off to another one tonight with Carolina, Florida tonight.
Yep.
All right, let's get into some questions, and then we'll get out of here. This is gonna be a good time. Speaking of time, NHL time. Have you watched any Florian Xhekaj this season? What do you think? I think he could be a 4th liner. I have seen him here and there. I've seen Laval a few times this year. I think if you put him in an NHL lineup on the 4th line, like, are you going to get a Michael Pezzetta style player where it's like, yeah, you put him over the boards for 8 minutes a night, he's going to go out, crash bang, go to the net. He's got some shooting ability. He's a decent puck carrier. Like, yeah, you could be a nice sort of straight line, northbound, physical guy. Sure. Would I do it on my team? Probably not. I think his game is a little bit limited and kind of reliant on impact, like just go. And that's I don't know about that projecting super well, and like he doesn't really move the puck all that well in terms of his passing work, but that's not his job, right? Like if you go, but if you send him out there on your fourth line and that's what you want out of him, you want just simple, physical, effective, just that's your job style thing. Yeah, sure, I guess he could do it. But I don't know if I would consider that like, is he a fourth liner on a cup winning team in Montreal? I'm not so sure about that. He could do it, but again, you make the NHL when a coach says you do. And I think there's an easy argument for Martin St. Louis to look at a Florian Jacki at some point and go, yeah, sure, I could throw you on the fourth line if I needed to. Yeah, let's give it a go and see how it goes. Reading an old Mark Scheifele scouting report from before he was drafted, and sounds similar to Jake O'Brien to me. Scheifele was also 6'3" and 170 pounds at the time. I mean, that's fair. I could see that, and Scheifele did take some time to hit his ceiling. And I think with O'Brien, I mean, in this year's class, if you wanted him top 10, he's in a tier for me that stretches to the top 10. If you wanted him, I could see it. I think there are other guys that I'd want a little more who are a little further along, but I mean, O'Brien does have really strong fundamentals in terms of like passing the puck, reading pressure, creatively getting out of jams, all these things that I think you need to know how to do. I don't know if he's as good at like a finisher as Scheifele, but he's a very efficient player. So I see the appeal, I totally get it. But if he goes like 6th or 7th or 8th, that might be a little rich for me, just because I think his pace of play and overall, involvement level is a little low, and I think the NHL might be a lot. But yeah, it's we got some time for Jake O'Brien around these parts. If you're looking for a right-hand defenseman in the early and late second round, who are you targeting? Who's right-handed? Who even is right-handed, really? I don't think this guy is. No, he's not. In the second round. You know what? Is this guy? What about him? Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, if Carter Amico is still floating around in the second round, that's kind of where I would start looking at him, because I actually went back and rewatched him and thought he was quite interesting. He's a better defensive player than I remember, and in this class, he sticks out quite a bit in that regard. Who else? Let me look here. Nope, he's left-handed. Like Sean Barnhill might be a guy I could see going in the second round. I know he's a guy that people seem to really like. I like him a lot. I know Dubuque really likes him. So yeah, I mean, he might be a guy that I think could be an interesting swing to take in the second round. Maybe a little bit lower upside, but also I've seen him do some pretty crazy stuff. So those are two guys I might look at in that range if they're there, and cross my fingers and send them to college for a while. Matty Beniers or James Higgins? Probably Beniers. I loved Matty Beniers as a kid. When he was a kid, I was an adult. And Higgins, I mean, it's close, but I think I go Beniers. I think so. I lean Beniers. I think he's got more like better physical tools, a higher sort of skill level, and he was a little more like dynamic. He could push and pull the game pretty well, and I feel like Higgins is still kind of learning how to do that. Which prospects in this draft have realistic first line upside? I mean, what is a first liner, right? Michael Granlund is a first liner on Dallas right now, right? Like, what does that mean, right? But I mean, guys that I could see being like extremely important for their rosters that like you want on the ice all the time, I would say Misa is the only one I can really look at and go, yep, if he were the number one center on a decent NHL team, I think he would be pretty easy to see there. Otherwise, like, could Martone play on the first line of an NHL team someday on the wing? Sure. Yeah, I could see it. I'm not certain he's going to be like 120 points playing 25 minutes a night, right? Like, that's not, I mean, maybe not what he's going to be. And there are other guys that I could see, like Anton Frondell is one of these guys where, yeah, if you put him on the first line with the right guys, he could work. It would work out there. But if you put him on the fourth line or something, he's going to be excellent there. Or in the third or second line, like he could find a role there too, right? Like it's more about what players bring to the game and what you can rely on them to do and how often you can do that, right? Like for me, it's like it depends on what you're telling these guys to do. And I don't know if there's a whole lot of guys this year that I can look at and go, yes, there will not be better players on the team for sure than you at this thing that I'm going to have you do. for 20 something minutes a night, right? Like Schaefer, I could see being a top pair guy who plays a ton of minutes and runs a power play and does all the things you need a top defenseman to do. Misa, I could see it as well, just a top end, creative offensive player. Outside of that, it's just like if they end up on a first line, it's because a coach put them there and they have a job to do and they do it pretty well. But I don't know exactly what that looks like. Celebrini and Bedard will probably be ultimately similar caliber players with wildly different play styles like Joe Sakic or Patrick Kane. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's reasonable. And I think that, yeah, this is kind of what I mean by it's like, who is good? Like, it's so funny. The other day, there was that, I don't know if any Americans saw this, but like on CBC on Hockey Night in Canada, they had an argument almost on TV about what is a scoring chance. And like Kevin Bieksa was saying, if you miss the net, it's not a scoring chance. And I think everybody else at the table was like, that's dumb. And they got into this like argument about what is a scoring chance. And I'm sitting there watching that going, this is what I live for. Like, this is the best. Because like in hockey, people talk, but never actually like explain what they're talking about. Like, what do you mean? What is a what is a controlled entry? What is a scoring chance? What is a shot on goal? If a shot hits the post, it's not counted as a shot on goal. Should it be? I think there's an argument that it should be, but there's also an argument that it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be because it's not like, actually at the area where you can score a goal.
But if it hits the net, if it hits the post and goes in, it's a shot on goal.
Sure, but that's because it took a weird deflection. Like if it just if it hits it and bounces out, like, or it's not even really a shot on goal, it just deflects.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm on the team kill shots on goal in the first place. That's my thing, is just delete that anyway.
But I need it for fantasy categories. It helps.
Well, shot attempts, that's what you do. You get the shot attempts going. I would love it. Score bugs.
That would be so wild in terms of scoring for shot attempts. This is like,
I don't know.
There's like double of them, or sometimes in Carolina's case, triple.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just draft all Carolina Hurricanes. You'll win every year.
Well, I mean, you probably devalue that stat quite a bit relative to shots on goal. But
if you play in a categories league, though.
True, that's true. But those are dumb. Anyway, we got a little bit off topic here.
Not dumb. I love them.
The point is, it's like the discussion of like, what is this? Like, people talk about, and especially this time of the year, right? Like, I want this guy because I think he's better than this guy. It's like, well, why? What does that mean? Right? Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Because to play hockey, there's like a 1,000 different things that you can bring to the game that make you valuable. So it's like, what is more valuable? Someone who hits and does a really good job playing the physical side of the game, or someone who passes the puck brilliantly? Like, which one is more important? It's like, well, we could argue about that all the time, but at the end of the day, like, you're trying to build a hockey team, right? So it's about finding what fits what your image of the game is supposed to look like, right? Like, you're not gonna, and that's why NHL draft lists, I say this a billion times, like, people go into my ranking posts and everything, and they're like, these are the worst rankings I've ever seen. How could you possibly have this guy here and this guy here? And it's like, buddy, if you saw what an NHL draft list looks like, your head would explode. Toronto had Fraser Minton top 15. Nobody in their right mind in the public world had him anywhere close to that, right? Like, and if anybody had Fraser Minton in the top 15, they go, these are the worst rankings I've ever seen, like blah, 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 blah. But the Toronto Maple Leafs had that on their list, right? Like, I've said this a few times. The team had Carter Yakimchuk in like if he's there in the 5th round, we draft him. Like, say what you will, but that's because they look at the player and go, here's why they might not be a fit for us, or here's why they might be a fit for us. Like, that's why I find the draft so interesting, is because it does give you a really good indication, if the team is run well, of like the direction and style of play they want to play, like where they want to go with their roster and who fits that style. So it's not necessarily like good versus bad, or like sick versus trash. It's like, what does one guy bring? What does another guy bring? What do you value? What are you looking for? And what do you think they can do for you? Right? Like, and what is important to you? And that can make things, that's why I do things in tiers largely, because it's like it's so open-ended, and like how much risk are you willing to tolerate, right? Like if you're less risk tolerant, then a guy like Roger McQueen is probably not going to be very high on your list, right? But if you are, I could see an argument that you have him at 5 or 6. I could see why you would, but depending on who you, so it's like, what is good, what isn't, right? Like it's a question that I don't think enough people sort of think about. And it's kind of how I started doing this. Like I deconstructed the game the way I saw it, really sort of sat back and saw it as like, okay, hockey is a game of events, right? So how do you get the good events to happen more? And how do you get the bad events to happen less? And it's like, once you watch like a lot of hockey, you start to pick up on like, okay, like I see a pattern here of things that kind of go in the right direction and things that don't go in the right direction, and you kind of go from there. But still, it's like there's no magic formula really. And so yeah, with Celebrini and Bedard, yeah, it's very different. Predictions on where you think Jackson Smith goes. Seems like a high upside, high risk prospect that needs major decision making improvements. I'm guessing he'll be a wild card. Yeah, I mean, I just watched him the other day. I tracked a game of him, and he was not very good. I mean, I thought at the U18s he was also not amazing. I do think that in terms of like skating ability, fundamentals, some good skill, he is one of the best defensemen out there. I don't know if there are that many other defensemen who I really, really see really challenging him. But it's about sort of how he finishes his checks, how he moves the puck up the ice, when he decides to pinch and when he decides to push for offense. It's all a little bit questionable, when he decides to shoot the puck. It's all, the more you watch him, the more you kind of go, he's good, but there are question marks here. Like I have him in a tier where if he's there at 7 or 8, like, yeah, there's an argument to be had to take him there. And I think he will probably go. Like I think you could always bet on NHL teams wanting defensemen and centers in the draft. They're just going to want them, And luckily, Smith is a pretty skilled but physical, big, rangy defenseman, and that checks a lot of boxes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see guys like Schaefer and Murka and Aitchison and who else? I don't know who else. All go really high. And then someone goes, yeah, we kind of have to take a guy like Smith at like 10 because everybody's drafted a bunch of defensemen already and he's got a lot of talent and we always need more good defensemen, right? Like something like that could make sense to me. But I do think there's a lot of risk with him. Like he might be one of these guys who is frustrating to watch in the NHL, but still makes it work because of just how much talent there is, like a guy like Noah Hannafin comes to mind, or, I was talking to Joel Henderson and he mentioned like a little bit less skilled version of Sergachev type guy where he's good. You want him on your team, but like, still some problematic moments and areas that you kind of need to live with, but still worth taking a good swing on because of what he brings. Favorite team for next year's World Junior Championship, Germany. I think the Germans are going to take it. They have a great team, amazing group. Unfortunately, Kazakhstan's not there. So Kazakhstan maybe would have been my pick, but whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the teams are going to look like. I feel like Canada's going to have a really good team. I don't think it'll be the States. But Canada, I think, will probably have the favorite team. But yeah, I don't know. Oh boy, I remember this name. I told you Kravtsov would be good. What do you think of his season? Any chance he returns to the NHL? Look, Kravtsov's game is perfectly suited to the KHL. There's a reason he was 24 and wasn't 23 and wasn't working out in the NHL. I don't know, like. I'm not surprised he went back to Russia and scored a bunch of goals and has a lot of points and plays a lot of minutes. Like big, great shooter, can shoot from everywhere, great catch and release guy. I mean, look, if he comes back to the NHL, then so be it. But I'm not, I'm not holding my breath. I feel like he kind of also is enjoying his life a little bit more playing over in Chelyabinsk. It seems like he didn't really enjoy playing in the NHL anyway. If you were in charge of San Jose's Dickinson's development, would you leave him in the juniors another year or bring him into the NHL, possibly with a development plan like Carlson had? Look, I think that the right move for him is college. I don't think he's going to learn anything playing on a dominant London Knights team again. If it were me, I'd use the extra time to my advantage. I don't think he's ready for the NHL right now, at least not as a 200-foot guy. Could he play? Sure. Like I could, if it's possible, I could see him getting a couple of games or something and giving him a go, but only if really like college is an option for him, which I'm not sure how the rules would work for that. But I imagine it would be okay because college hockey starts after the beginning of the NHL season, I believe, but I could be wrong on that. So I don't know. I wouldn't be in any rush to bring. I wouldn't be in any rush to put him in the NHL anyway. Like he's 19, or he's gonna be 19. Like what's the rush? San Jose is going to add another really good player this year. They'll probably take a step forward as a group, but and they could use him. I think they don't have much in the way of defensemen, but I don't know what the rush would be with the issues that he kind of has, right? I think college hockey for a year would be a nice stepping stone. If the AHL were possible, I'd say that, but I don't know if he's ready for the NHL yet, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Makar would be Makar anywhere. The talent is obvious. I mean, that's kind of what Greg was saying is if you swapped Dahlin and Makar, you'd go, wow, this Makar guy is really talented, but does nothing around him. So is it really valuable? But in Boston, in Colorado, Dahlin would be a superstar, right? So yeah, I mean, I think he's right on that. Obviously Makar is the same player no matter where he goes. But the fact of the matter is that Makar would be in worse surroundings. And I feel like if you're a good player with worse surroundings, people start to talk about you as if you are part of those worse surroundings. Are there any examples of a public list like yours or Wheeler's influencing a team's decision on draft day? If so, any stories you could share? Well, it's funny. So I can't speak to Scott. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. I don't know. Nobody tells me that kind of thing. I mean, what happens with me is I'll get texts because I am an outlier, right? I'm not like everybody else, right? I stick my neck out a lot more than other people. I think I have bolder takes than I think a lot of people because I just lean into what I believe in and I just don't really care what other people are doing. I listen to them, and if they disagree, I explore it for myself. But and so sometimes there will be situations where someone goes, well, I'm thinking about this player in this light. And I go, well, I haven't done that. Or, is it, or is this player really this low on my list and deserves to be there when they're higher on others? And maybe I'll think about it in a different way and sort of come to an agreement with myself, a middle ground or something, or they're probably more right than I am. And that's fine. But in terms of teams, what I do get is I do get some people messaging me and going, hey, noticed you talked about this guy on the show, or you wrote about this guy, or you do this or this and mentioned him, what's the deal there? Or here's what our scouts are thinking and blah, 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 blah. And it kind of goes, I don't know if it influences their decision really at all. I do know for a fact that there is a team out there that, really seemed to value my work to the point where I am almost certain that it, did some good work for them in the draft, and I never heard from them about it, but I am very certain that I'm very certain they employed me without employing me, so to speak. We'll say that. I'm pretty sure that's a thing that happened.
I know this.
Yes, it's yeah. So in that sense, that could also happen. I mean, I'm sure
it's
that
awesome, but it's not.
It's not. I'm sure that what happens is that the smart people in the league are at least listening and doing what I do, right? And exploring, right? A guy messaged me from the NHL the other day, right? And he was like, have you seen this guy? And I kind of had, but I was like, I didn't really see much there. And the level that the player was playing at was really low. And I kind of just went, I don't know if it really crosses any boxes that I trust enough. So, but I went in and had another look anyway, right? I didn't necessarily agree because the person was like, well, this guy might go in the second round. A team might draft this guy top 50. And I'm going, really? Interesting. So I look into it for myself. And at the end of the day, I kind of looked into it for myself. And at the end of the day, like I kind of still believed my own conclusions about the guy. But that's kind of what I think teams do as well, right? The smarter people will not immediately dismiss something that they think is out of the ordinary, but they'll look at it and go, I can form it. I can form myself. I can form things myself, and get my own opinions on this. So I think that's the way to do it. And I don't. So to answer your question specifically, I don't know anything factually, but there's discussions, right? Like they're not totally insulated all the time. I mean, I don't talk to every team, but there's a handful of them that I interact with quite a lot, and we pick each other's brains quite a lot. And obviously they have to be careful about what they say to me and everything, but like generally speaking, it's a back and forth. And so does my influence them very much? I don't know. For a fact, but I mean, maybe in a small way because of the people that I talk to, but I don't know. I don't know. Expectations for the Memorial Cup. It's going to be sick. That's my expectation. At least 3 of the 4 teams are going to be awesome. Moncton, Medicine Hat, and London are all just a riot. It's really, really fun. Medicine Hat, skill out the wazoo. They've been getting unbelievable goaltending. Moncton obviously has some incredible players on that team, just super talented, super high energy team. And then you've got London, they're like the Panthers. They've got some skill, they have some offensive ability, but they just pound you. They will get you, and they will play around you really, really well. And they do a lot of things just really structure really well. And they've got some really talented guys on that team. It's going to be a war. I think it's going to be crazy. I expect fireworks. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait. I'll be watching the games for sure. Are there Rempe analytics yet? He unironically was dominating offensively his last handful of games to end the season. He outscored Tom Wilson through the same number of games through their careers. Any upside? You ask me about Rempe like all the time. I don't know, man. Like, again, could you throw Matt Rempe over the boards and go, listen, man, your job is to throw as many hits as you possibly can, not take penalties, and put your big body in front of the net and pound away?
But that's impossible because he takes penalties.
Right. But like, that's kind of the angle you have to take with him, right? I mean, how many minutes was he even playing? Like, obviously, like the other thing too is like, if you're playing on the 4th line and playing like 8 minutes a night, the sample is automatically a little bit more skewed. Yeah. Like in the last few games, he scored 3 points in his last 6 games where he wasn't playing under 10 minutes a night. So like, I don't know, man. Like he scored 8 points in 42 games this year, right? Like he's how old now? 22. He'll be 23. I think he's pretty close to what you're going to get. Like Tom Wilson, I think plays with more speed and like confidence on the puck than a guy like Rempe. Like Rempe is much more of an off puck impact guy. Again, it's like, can he play in the NHL? I guess like he is, he's playing and they aren't really scoring on him all that much. But do I think that all of a sudden he's going to blossom into a 70 point, 60 point power winger who is a Tom Wilson out there? Like, I don't think so based on what I've seen of him. Like, I just think you watch him play and you're like, yeah, like maybe he's an effective defense first bottom 6 guy who is annoying to play against, but I don't know. I'm not expecting huge things out of him, even though he is huge. Thoughts on Simon Wang? Hao-Shi Wang? His stats aren't good, but he seems like he has good physical tools, skating, and size. Yes, I like Wang. I think he is a good player. He is a guy who skates really well for a guy his size. And the thing is, like with him, and it's unfortunate that I should ask Greg to watch him and have him back on again to talk about him, because I think he's a fascinating example of a guy who, if he's alone on a rink and just doing skills training, I feel like he's elite. But when it comes to actually playing hockey, like a hockey game, things kind of fall apart for him, right? Like his passes aren't strong enough. He's making passes too quickly or not quickly enough. He's trying to skate into too much traffic and just doesn't really get the job done. He takes on risks sometimes where you're just going like, what is going on here? Like what he's putting pucks on net when he doesn't really have the lane or an opportunity. Just a lot of those fundamental details of like hockey sense and awareness where you're just kind of like, is he going to learn all of these things, right? Like he's a really good skater and I think he does have some good defensive ability and there is talent there. But you're kind of asking him to become a hockey player from here. So like, is it possible? Yes. Like if a team drafts him 30th overall, I can see why, but it is a risk. Like I think based on how he plays and even in the OJHL, right? Like he wasn't necessarily like dominant there. And that is a league where even if you're dominant, being an NHL draft pick is a question mark. So you're literally drafting him to be big and what he's going to be in 10 years, right? Like, and you have to draft him. Like if I interview him for an NHL team in the draft room and he comes off as anything but a student of the game, like I will work my tail off to get better at the fine details of this. And I will listen to every word a coach tells me. And like, I will, take my time and get better and better and better as time goes on. If that's the kind of person that he is at this point in the season, then I have a little more interest in him. But I mean, he just comes off as a kid who has so much talent and so much good fundamentals in terms of skating and some good skill, but putting it together and like playing the game is really hit or miss.
But Will, if you watch the game tape with him,
that's true.
He says school's not his thing. So he told his mom that, and then they moved here.
Take that for what you will. But learning how to play hockey is not necessarily school.
Like just talking with him, he seems like a guy that's like very much focused on himself. Like not in a bad way, but it's just like he's very like he talks about visualizing what he's doing. Like I think a lot of it is just like getting better at, I don't know, things that he's doing on the ice, but like not thinking about everything else around him. Like it's kind of what he's doing. That's kind of what he focuses on. And that's kind of the sense I got in the interview.
Right.
Very fascinating dude. Just seems like he's very much, seems like he's really, and like even when his mom would like give him pointers or whatever, he's like, Mom, I just want to focus on my thing. So like, I don't know what else that adds to it, but it's just something I wanted to bring up in all of this.
Right.
Oh, I forgot to mention, because there was something about Michael Misa you and Greg talked about, and I just remembered. The whole thing about him not being a good playoff performer and like getting on the Memorial Cup. This guy literally won the Memorial Cup last year, okay? Did people forget about that with Michael Misa?
Yes.
He's already won.
Well, like, look at what people are saying about James Hagens, right? Like, people are looking at like Brady Martin ahead of James Hagens now and like looking at and going, well, look at how good Brady Martin was at the under 18s. He was like this physically dominant guy, whatever. It's like, number one, they were playing Latvia, Norway, Finland, and Slovakia and almost lost to the Czech Republic. Like the level of competition there was not very good. And number two, James Hagens was at the under 18s last year and was dominant. Like, do we all forget when we were watching him at that age going, holy crap, look at this guy go? Like, I don't think anybody was saying that much about Brady Martin. I think they were watching him play physical hockey and going, wow, look at this guy really, really playing hard hockey, like good projectable hard hockey. This is pretty good, but Hagens it's like, okay, like, are we just going to forget what happened? Like Hagens was at the World Juniors and looks pretty good, right? Like that's kind of crazy to me, right? Like, so it's like, let's keep some perspective. But again, recency bias is a thing, the bright shiny object you just looked at in the storefront is always going to stick out more, right? So that's the way she goes. Do you think Marco Rossi makes sense to pair with Ivan Demidov? Yes. Yes. Like if Montreal can get Marco Rossi out of Minnesota, I would do it. Like Montreal has the pieces to make it happen, and there's jobs there for him to take. And yeah, I feel like playing with Demidov, he would be pretty good at it. And I think he brings us some of the things that Demidov doesn't, and I think they would work. What do you think of Vinzen's Rohrer? I mean, he's fun. Okay, so he's scoring at the World Championships. That explains that. And a lot of penalty minutes. I think he might have gotten thrown out of a game, maybe something like that. Yeah, 25 minutes in penalties against Switzerland and got thrown out. So cool. I don't know. I mean, he's always been like a fun, skilled guy. Like I don't think he's like he might be like an energetic bottom six dude, maybe in the NHL, but like top six, I think might be a little bit much. Like I remember watching him in the National League this year, and he's a good dynamic guy, but he's still kind of small, has a little bit of like small player issues. So I think he's a guy that you take one step at a time. Like you're not going to push him straight into the NHL, I don't think, from the National League after next year. And I would expect him to play a bigger role in the Swiss League next year. Like he had a good year, but I think next year, if he takes another step with Zurich, I think he could be, a much more intriguing option in the NHL one day. But yeah, he's a good player, fun to watch. But I think the bar for the style of play that he has to make it in the NHL is pretty high. And I think that's why he slipped in the draft like he did. But he is still young. He's only 20, turns 21 in September. So there's that. And he's got some good stuff going for him. Target Sean Barnhill mid-late second. True. Everett Baldwin in the second round. Yeah, Everett Baldwin could be a nice option. I just haven't seen enough of him to be really sure about him, but he's fine. He's an interesting player. And yeah, if he's a second round pick, I guess, sure. Based on your own rankings and your own observations, which NHL teams draft closer to your philosophy like Carolina, and which teams draft furthest from your philosophy? Well, Ottawa, Boston, Utah. Yeah, Ottawa, Boston, Utah definitely stick out as teams where I just like am kind of oftentimes kind of baffled at what they're doing. Seattle, I'd say, is a team that really seems like they're up my alley. Last year, Calgary pretty much did everything I probably would be very okay with doing last year. Maybe I could nitpick here and there, but I think they came away looking great under Conroy. So maybe that continues into next year.
There's some similarity with you in Columbus to an extent.
Yeah,
but
Columbus to an
extent.
extent.
But then they also go way the other way.
I think Columbus is one of those, we need a little bit of everything type teams. Yeah, we can draft the guy who scores a lot, but you got to let the big guys also have a pick of their litter too, right?
But
like
hey, honestly, they get really fun and interesting guys too. So
yeah, they do. Yep, they do. Could you get into depth on your draft philosophy and what you value? Yeah. Okay. So, obviously this is something that changes over time. You learn and you make mistakes,
as it should, truthfully.
As it should. Yeah. As it should. I think for me, like, I always think about the game at its fundamental level, right? Like, again, I said this earlier, but like break it down into little bits and pieces of like what makes a team what makes a team successful. Right? Like, what is it about the game that you think pushes things in the right direction the most? Right? And different people probably have different answers to that. And I don't think it's as simple as just like, well, you just score goals and don't get scored on. Like, well, that's obvious, right? Like that's literally just the game. So it's like, but how do you win?
Idiot.
Yeah, exactly. You idiot. You just score goals. But it's like, how do you do that? Right? And what do you do to get that job done? So for me, I always think about guys who I look at the NHL playoffs. That's the ultimate goal, right? If you want to draft a player, you want guys who help you win a Stanley Cup. That's the point. So what does that mean, right? To me, right, I don't think that necessarily means they have to be big, physical, heavy guys, right? Like, I don't think that's the answer. It is part of the answer if they are also successful at scoring or successful at the things that actually help you win, as opposed to the things that like make it harder for your opponent to win, or really just pounding them into submission. Like there's an advantage to that, I suppose, but you still need to score. So to me, I look for guys in the draft that like are rare in the NHL, right? Like, and what I mean by that is not like, oh, how many 6'6" right-hand shot defensemen are there in the NHL? It's like, that's not the point. Like, I'm thinking, who are the guys that every single shift I look at them go over the boards and they are pounding their opponents. They are driving them into the boards. They are working to get pucks back. They pass the puck well. They use their line mates effectively. They drive the puck up the ice, whether it's carrying it, passing it, making themselves a target. those are the kinds of things that I really value, right? Like they go over the boards and I know what I'm getting out of them. You know, it's like they go over the boards and I can look at them and go, I can trust you to not float around and wait for something to happen. I can trust you to help your line mates. I can trust you.
D&D for Will.
Exactly. Yeah. Ovechkin, you know, forget about how he played when he was 18. He just D&D, forget about it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, how do you get yourself to advantageous positions, right? And how do you help your line mates get there? Like, that's why I value guys so highly that a lot of people may not, because I'm like, I like guys who make life easier for everyone else, right? Like oh my God, Berkeley Catton, for example, great example. Super smart, right? Maybe not the biggest guy, maybe not the most physical guy, but the way he sees the ice and the skill level and the quickness and the creativity on the fly, chaining plays together, you know, like if you go to the Bill Zonin report, there's a really good example of what I'm talking about in that video, where like in the span of 5 or 6 seconds, Zonin works a give and go, gets the puck into the offensive zone, makes a great pass across the slot, sets up a scoring chance that misses the net. He then goes behind the goal line, hits the guy against the boards to cause the turnover below the goal line, and then shoves him off of the pressure along the boards, gets a stick on the puck and backhand pass back out in front. The guy shoots it on the net. What does Zonin do? Go to the net, has a bit of pocket of space, puts it on net, goalie saves it, rebound, he gets it again and puts it in. Like, that sequence is a really good example of the kinds of players that I love. It's like in the flow of the game, whether it's fast or slow or along the boards or not, they are constantly involved and like constantly like, it's this fluid motion in the game that I think guys that's rare in the NHL to have guys that do that, right? And so I think that's what I always look for. And I think that's kind of why I might stick out amongst other people, is because that is priority one for me. So it's, you know, obviously it's not perfect. And there are players that will do things like score points that, you know, or score goals where I'm going, yeah, like I probably wouldn't draft this player that high, but I see the appeal, you know, and obviously guys who score goals are great. But I again, I call it the chain of possession or the cycle of possession, right? Like, I value guys who are at the bottom of that cycle where it's, you need the puck back. You got to get the puck. How do you do that? Right? You can't score if you don't have the puck. You can't score if you can't pass the puck up the ice, or you are relying on someone else to do that for you, which that's where you lose me. It's like, is this a player that relies on other player types in order to enable them to do what they do? Right? So I look at like a guy like Michael Sverchek, right? I have taken a lot of crap about Sverchek over the year because I have him so high on my list. But off the puck, that guy is a menace, and he does it in the SHL. He is physical. He's a really good stick checker, really skilled, makes decisions quickly. The only thing is he's got that Fabian Lysell energy where in the offensive zone, it's just, there's no real thinking. It's just popping pucks on net, you know, but when the puck isn't on his stick, he's right there all the time, always. And that's what I love. And then 2 days ago, I got a text from an NHL guy going like, people are talking about Sverchek a little more now. Like it's people are seeing a little more out of him, especially after the under 18s. And I'm going, well, okay, cool. You know, maybe not as high as I have him, but that's the thing I think I look for and people look for. NHL teams look for that kind of thing. So to me, that's what I love, is just this energy. And, you know, like skill kind of goes out the window a little bit in the NHL playoffs in the Stanley Cup, right? Like you don't really notice the high skill guys as much. You notice the guys who use skill to their advantage really well and make simple plays and just sort of carve through the opponent.
Unless their name is William Nylander or Connor McDavid.
Well, yes, Connor McDavid is a little bit of a different case study, but yeah, even Nylander, like I would say, like he uses what he's got really well. I think that's why he's so successful in the playoffs, right? Like he is a good off puck player most of the time. When he isn't, people notice. But yeah, like that's kind of what I'm looking for. So yeah, like that's and that's, I stick to that really, really hard, right? Like I remember a few years ago, someone messaged me about Brendan Brisson. And they're like, just off of the quality of his shot on the power play alone, he should be a top 15 pick. And I just went, okay. And then I went and watched him and I went, he's not that like effective at playing the game. But yeah, if someone gets him the puck in the offensive zone, like at the offensive blue line, sure. Yeah, cool. But like, if you want that top 15, go nuts. But I feel like there's other areas that are really important that are probably places I'd look first rather than the quality of a player's shot. And plus, I could have a player sit out after practice with 100 hockey pucks 5 times a week, and their shot probably ideally improves, right? Like it just, that just happens.
It should.
That could just happen naturally. It should, but it logically makes, but like in terms of feeling the game at a game pace and like playing at that in that intensity level, that's not really something you can just like learn in practice or like learn staying on the ice extra time after a game, right? Like it's not as easy. There's something different about being in a game environment, which is why I value it so much. Okay, let's bang through this here. Do the Rangers seem to be the slowest team in the league to you? No, the Leafs are. As a Ranger fan, when I watch other teams' games, it's night and day the pace they play. But it seems like the Rangers are playing a different era. But I agree. I made a joke, but the Rangers do play like it's
right up there in terms
the
of
Rangers are up there. Yeah, they are slow,
Yep,
and I think that's
old.
a big problem. Yeah, they're slow and old. What do you think of Colin Potter? He is my boy. I love Colin Potter. I mean, obviously there are holes in his game, and I think he does have again that Fabian Lysell like. I go so fast and play so hard that I can sometimes overthink things or underthink things and just not play good sort of structured hockey.
It's like it's not giving yourself enough time to actually think at the speed you're moving at. That's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think I do like the thing about Potter. And I mean, I've had people in my YouTube comments be like, I'm an idiot for liking him so much because he doesn't have, like someone said, like he doesn't have a B game. Right. And I'm going, well, right. But I feel like his A game is really high end, and everybody and a lot of guys in this draft don't really have an A game. Like all they have is B game. Like they're good, I guess, at like a lot of different things that are safe and dependable, and like they can resist pressure, they can throw hits, they can pass a puck okay, like they are okay at a lot of different things. But again, like I'm thinking about the NHL playoffs, when you're going 100% hard every shift, when I look at a Colin Potter in this year's draft class, like very quickly, he becomes a guy where I'm like, the speed, the skating ability, the skill level, his shot quality, like all of these things become really high end. And I'm going, I would rather work through the reps with him and like let him stay in college for a while longer, get some better line mates with ASU, because he's playing center in an NCAA program at 17 years old. I don't know if you know this, but it's not easy. And when I went back to watch him in the U18s, yes, he had some frustrating moments, right? Like he overlooked players that were in open ice with him. And I would probably beat it into his head that it's like, look, if you're going to carry the puck all the way up the ice, if you cross the red line and there are 3 guys around you, don't try to beat them. There's probably a man open along the boards in wide open space. And then you can just go to the net. And you don't even have to, like, then it's easier, right? Like, and ideally over time, he learns to do that more and more and more, but still the talent base, right? Like with Greg, we talked about it. The fundamentals and the talent base with him are so good that like at some point in this draft, you just have to bet on it, right? Like, so to me, that's why I have him so high, is because I think that especially in this class, like the hockey sense things, there might be some truth to that. Sure. But I think at the very least, he could regress to being a really, really, really talented offensive forward that forechecks extremely well, because that's another thing he did quite well. It's not like he was allergic to physical contact either, right? This is a guy who I think checks a lot of boxes. How do you scout the queue with how weak it's become, making evaluating guys like Desnoyers even harder? I could see him being a player anywhere from Scott Laughton to Mike Richards. Yeah, so I've said like all year that Caleb Desnoyers, like again, he is to me one of the top 10 guys eligible, or top 20 guys eligible for this year. Like in the entire world, if you took 20 hockey players at his age, he is in that 20 best. I think that's reasonable, right? Like this is the thing. I like him. But again, I still can't help the feeling that Desnoyers is at his best. Again, he's one of these guys who I think is at his best when other guys are doing heavy lifting and giving him the puck in the offensive zone. Like once the puck is in the offensive zone, he's lights out good sometimes. Like his reads of the ice, his ability to create space, create passing lanes, find ways around opponents, it's high end. Like it's really good. It's just a matter of like when you're in the NHL, that's where I start to go, is he going to get the chance to do this as much? Is he, I don't think he has like the pace of play, the skill level at high pace of play, the real speed in his game to really be worth taking like third overall. Like some people are saying third overall. And I feel like that's, I don't know. I haven't talked to a single person out there who's been watching these guys all year going, yeah, Desnoyers is definitely a top 3 guy this year, right? Like top 10, sure. Like people have been saying that for a while, I suppose. But I cannot help myself. I think Mike Richards is an interesting option, throwing that one out there. Like I do see him as a good third line center on a good team. Like you have him, you know what you're getting out of him. You could play him like, again, it's a joke in my Discord server now, but like him playing with Juraj Pekarczyk and Julius Sumpf, 2 big, faster, heavier, physical guys, it makes his life a lot easier. They might not score as much, but the chain of possession that leads to his offense oftentimes starts with them a lot of the time, right? He might dangle the pants off a guy in the offensive zone or rip a wrist shot from the top of the faceoff circle past a goaltender. But like 3 puck possessions before that is kind of where I'm more interested as it's great that he can do that, but it also has to be taken into account, like what happens leading into that situation. So that's where I kind of fall down on that. And in terms of Quebec, like, yeah, it does make it really hard. It does. Quebec is just objectively not on the same level as Ontario and the Dub. But I will say Quebec is definitely the league that will benefit by far the most at the US players coming up, because the all of New England is in the Quebec area. And I already know for a fact, like there's a lot of players in the States who are looking at going to Quebec and the Maritimes and going to play up there, because that level of play is going to get a lot better, a lot quicker, I think, rather than here in Ontario, where they get more of like the Midwest, and out west where they get more of like the Pacific Coast area kind of vibe. Like there's going to be good players that come up from there too, but by and large, like Quebec is, I think, going to benefit quite a bit. Last question, thoughts on Mason West? Yeah, I mean, I think with Mason West, he's a good, interesting guy with some good fundamentals and some good skating for a big guy. I just don't think he's quite that far along in terms of like actual output and ability. And I don't have any concrete information on this, but I was told that he's leaning towards playing football because the NIL money could be better. And he's really good at it, apparently. Like he's, I think, a 3 or 4 star recruit for NCAA college football. And yeah, like hockey just isn't as big a sport. So if he goes and plays football, then that's it, right? Like, it might be like if he gets drafted in the first round, I could maybe see why, but I don't think he's that good. But in terms of like, yeah, he's not going to play football. He's going to focus on hockey, and he's committed and all of these things. Like, I think there's enough fundamentals there that I think he could be an interesting one to keep an eye on and could turn into a pretty good sort of skilled, to maybe offensive leaning sort of 200-foot winger who plays smart, moves the puck pretty well. But he kind of does play like he kind of isn't really 100% focused a lot of the time. Like he's big and got some good skating ability, but he kind of just is a little floaty and kind of doubtful about him a little bit, but good player though. Bear versus Coots. Well, Bear is stronger, more aggressive, I would say, on the puck and off of it. Coots is more finesse oriented, like he's more skilled, I think, and like a quicker pace of play guy. But I don't think he has as much like separation ability physically or speed wise as Bear, but they're pretty close on my list. I think Bear projects a little bit better, but I think the right team with Coots on like their third line, like Coots might be like a Chandler Stevenson type guy, and like a third line guy who's valuable and doesn't necessarily shoot the lights out a lot of the time.
Going to Seattle.
Yeah, he's going to Seattle, but he makes good plays and he plays hard and he plays smart and has some offensive tools there too, but not necessarily like he might be more of a 200-foot, if you're comfortable with a bit of a smaller-ish third line center, he could be a guy that makes a lot of sense. And I think a smart team might pick him up later than he should go. Fearlessness and undying engine are huge for playoffs. Exactly that. And that's what I look for, right? That's why I love Teddy Stiga so much, right? Like every time he went over the boards last year, I knew what I was getting out of him. And that's the same thing this year. Every time he goes over the boards, you know exactly what you're getting out of him. And he's a guy that, it's like Logan Stankoven. I don't care how big you are, but if you play like Logan Stankoven, you're going to be fine. You're going to endear yourself to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Who's Pavel Datsyuk in this draft? A late round overager. Oh God. A late round overager. I mean, I don't think there are any Pavel Datsyuks anymore because we don't live in 1998 or whatever it was when he was drafted. I mean, Ivan Fomin is not a re-entry, but Ivan Fomin as a 7th round pick would be hilarious. And I would love to see him turn into something because he's adorably fun to watch. I don't know if he's an NHL player ever, but he's a fun one. I mean, I really like Ludwig Johnson still, right? He was in camp for the Swiss national team for the World Championships and didn't make it. Had a pretty good season playing for Zug this year.
Zug.
And yeah,
Like
Zug.
that.
And I really, really like him. He's not Pavel Datsyuk, I'll tell you that much. But I mean, I would have picked him last year. He's on team Scouching already. So late in the draft this year, if someone takes a flyer on him because he's been so impressive this year, I thought he was really good at the World Juniors. He's been really good in the National League this year, and almost made the national team in camp this year. Like, that's pretty cool. The way you're describing Potter, I think he'd be perfect for the Rangers at 12. Yeah, I mean, look, if he is what yes, you're right. I think he's exactly the direction the Rangers need to go, and I think he'd look awesome in a Rangers jersey.
Will he get picked by them?
Will he get picked by them? No. I think there's a bigger chance of Potter going in round 2 than in the top 15 at this point. Like the way people talk about him, and I mean, even after an under 18s where he was, in terms of many areas of the game, I thought was extremely good. People are still kind of looking at him and going, yeah, but what is he going to be in the NHL? I don't know. He's kind of dumb or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, whatever. Oh, Shanahan's contract was officially not renewed. Yikes. As it probably should be.
Yep.
Yeah, well, onwards we go. I assume it's too late for Lutfulin to get drafted, but his MHL stats have always been crazy. I like Lutfulin, and we'll end here. Like, I like Lutfulin. Really good goal scorer. You can still draft him. He's still draft eligible. But he always was one of these, like, again, like the hockey sense and the passing ability and the vision around the ice was always the big question. I just wasn't sold on his upside as an NHL player, but like a VHL player, maybe a KHL player one day, like I could easily see that, but I'm not so sure about NHL level upside because, again, he doesn't play a bottom 6 style of play. It's like top 6 or bust for most NHL coaches, and I'm not sure he's quite there. And I agree. I think Charlie Serrato could be worth a late round pick. I have him on and off my list this year, all year long. And yeah, I like him. I would, if someone wanted him 6th, 7th round and we interviewed him and he came off really good, I've been a fan of him for years. So I'm really happy that he grew a bit and has had a really successful year. But he was a guy that flirted with my list when he was a draft eligible with Youngstown, and when he was with the US team. So yeah, fun player. But that's going to be it. Thanks for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Again, thank you to Greg. Really, really fun. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll be back Monday night. We got Scouching reports coming out tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday, or tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We had some new ones come out this week, so you should go check those out as well. We got playlists on the channel. And with that, we're going to call it a day. AJ, any parting words, or are we getting out of here?
Game tape will come at some point. I promise. I promise, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I promise.
Got it.
And goodbye, Shanahan. Go Leafs, go!